Happy New Year! Welcome 2022. Jay here with the OverMangaCast. I'm going to be kicking us off into this new year with Mermaid Saga, Ningyo Shinzu by Takahashi Rumiko. This week we read chapters 1 through 16. And on this episode we had a special guest, Lum Yasha. Be sure to check their channel out, and let's start!
Hey, welcome back to the OverMangaCast. I'm Matt. You'll notice there's no Sam and Jacob this week. They unfortunately fell down a well into an alternate dimension where they destroyed a Shikon jewel shard. They were actually supposed to be back by now, but they keep running into puppet clones. Well, anyway, we've got a much better guest than them this week. We are joined today by Lum Yasha, host of Manga Mavericks and also host of the Lum Squad. Lum, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. And yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm sorry to hear that they're off on this adventure. Those shards are just so tiny. There's so many pieces. They'll be on that adventure forever. If only they could find like a piece of mermaid's flesh to ingest, and that'll help them keep up their journey for a long time so they can actually manage to find all the shards. Because good Lord knows that they'll just be at it forever otherwise. They might not find them all before they,
Oh man, Lum, did you go to school for segues? Because that brings us right into Mermaid Saga. At the top of the show, we always like going around and asking everyone what their familiarity is with the series. So since you're our guest today, Lum, how are you familiar with Mermaid Saga?
Yeah, so as my username probably suggests, I'm a big fan of the works of Rumiko Takahashi, and I'd read this series when I was really getting into her works about 10-ish years ago, and really enjoyed it. It stands out in Takahashi's oeuvre as like a true horror comedy with some like really serious kind of gritty action. This is storytelling that Takahashi would expand upon in Inuyasha and now currently Mao. But whereas there's some more lighthearted moments and bits of comedy in those series, Mermaid Saga stands out for how really serious it is for the most part. Not a lot of levity. And that's kind of what makes it cool for a creator that is so often known for like her wacky romantic comedies. And that's what I really appreciated. It was like a lot of fun to kind of have this opportunity to revisit it, because it also represents just such a really cool point in Takahashi's art career and art development, because man, like her illustrations in the book are just so beautiful, and it really is like kind of the peak of Takahashi's artistry in my opinion, or like it's the aesthetic that I love most. And yeah, so yeah, that's basically my relationship to it in a nutshell.
Oh, cool. Matt here. I did not know this existed until you suggested it, so this was a completely new read for me. I'd never heard of it before and read all of it. And finally, Jay, did you know anything about Mermaid Saga jumping in?
So I actually had come across Mermaid Saga in passing. I had been a huge fan back in the day of Inuyasha. However, and I'll go into greater detail about this, I have a gripe with it being termed Mermaid Saga. I prefer the original Ningyo no Mori, because I feel like it connotes a more that horror terror genre, and that's kind of where I gravitated towards with my manga journey. So I feel like I would have picked this up much earlier had it been, more connotated with the horror supernatural genre as opposed to, lighthearted Mermaid Saga. I thought it was like more cheery about mermaids and that. So kind of I feel like it was a misnomer. So unfortunately, while I would still consider myself a fan of Rumiko Takahashi's work, it was bypassed for so many years because of the title.
Well, that's interesting. Well, Ningyo no Mori really referred to just Mermaid's Forest. The title of the collective series in Japan is Ningyo Shirizu, which does kind of more directly translate to like mermaid stories, Mermaid Saga. But yeah, though I would think that, yeah, like based on the name, like the sense of eeriness in some of the chapters and some of the stories, like they do convey more of a sense that, these are horror stories rather than saga, which doesn't quite say, well, this is a collection of stories, but it doesn't quite tell as much that, these are horror titles in the same way that Mermaid's Mask or Mermaid's Scar or Mermaid's Forest does.
The one thing I will bring up is we had the collector's edition, at least I did. I was reading that, and the cover of that does not let you know this is a horror manga at all. It's in all fairness, it's probably trying to capitalize on her like other works and try and portray like more of they're just cute characters. And it's
yeah, and that's kind of why my upset was it being marketed more so as Mermaid Saga, and then the cover on top of it. I just feel it wasn't appropriately marketed, at least for myself, because I would have picked this up, as I said, much earlier had it been connoted with it's not just your typical, late 80s, early 90s type romance comedy.
Yeah, no, the covers, they focus on more beautiful illustrations. I really like the collector's editions, but yeah, like it doesn't really tell you that, oh no, these stories are actually quite dark. I think the covers of like kind of the previous editions kind of got that moodiness more across the previous volume releases in the 2000s. But yeah, like the covers, they're really beautiful, I think, with the illustrations it shows in the backgrounds. But yeah, they just show like Mana on the cover, and they don't really indicate to you like, oh, these are dark stories. You're going to see some really creepy stuff and some really brutal violence in this.
Hey, did you like Creature from the Black Lagoon? Do I have 12 chapters for you?
Yeah, I know you're going to see some grotesque monsters for sure.
Yep. So yeah, I guess we can jump right in. Conveniently, the individual stories actually have their own names, so we can go by those because it's a little easier than chapter numbers. We first start off with the story titled A Mermaid Never Smiles, where we cut into the main character you'll see on the cover, Mana. From what we're depicted, she's basically being treated as like some kind of princess in this village. She has been bedridden for the previous few years at this point because her caretaker tells her she has some kind of illness. It is indicated that she used to be able to go outside more often, but that has been restricted from her more and more, probably because she's sick. Matt said, doing air quotes as if that means anything for a podcast.
More so they have a reason for not wanting her to leave.
Mm-hmm.
That too, but I thought it was also alluded to in this first chapter here that at least it shows the image of her being carried on her back. So it was not just that she was sick, it's also she's grown significantly and they can't carry her any longer.
And there's also the implication that perhaps she's always had her, as we later find out, her feet bound. Like they've always have been raising her. They've been pampering her, but they have been essentially like raising her, like cattle for slaughter. So, they are like trying to, treat her well and make her grow up healthy. But at the same time, they also don't want her to like run off her own, escape, or anything happen to her because of their purposes.
Yeah, and I think Jay brings up a good point. It might actually just be a physical necessity at this point because they are a village of aging women. Like they're all older women at this point with a few exceptions, so maybe the like likelihood of being able to carry an almost 15-year-old girl is probably not realistic anymore.
Essentially it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B of we physically can't carry you, but we're also not trying to encourage you to leave the village.
Yeah, it would take a great deal of effort, as they mentioned later, that if they are to take her outside, they are going to like put her in a caravan to carry her because she's like a full grown a girl right now, so she's pretty heavy.
Yeah, she is on the eve of her 15th birthday is where the story starts, which is basically indicate there's some necessity to that number. They don't really dive into it. They don't really need to. That is just the age they have decided that something needs to happen because all of the women gather in like a torchlit meeting where they come to the conclusion that the oldest amongst them needs to die because essentially Mana is to be fed the flesh from her. A woman by the name of Aya she offers herself up, I believe, pretty willingly in that she has lived the longest, so it is her flesh that should be taken. And we get revealed that she strips down and goes into the water, and upon being in the water is speared to death, where it's revealed that she is a mermaid. I believe they decapitate her.
No, the nanny cuts a piece of her flesh from her tail fin. Gotcha.
Okay.
Which raises questions, and this is a question I have throughout the series. Why does the mermaid have to die?
Well, they don't necessarily have to die. They can take a still living piece of their flesh.
Yeah. I mean, that's also illuminated a little later into the reading, but it was just really interesting that this person had to be offered as a complete sacrifice.
Yeah. It seems like a ritual sacrifice kind of thing that, they kill the oldest among them to, you know, feed the person who's going to like embody the youth of the next, generation of the mermaids.
Yeah, I gave this first chapter some leeway when it came down to their mermaid lore, because this kind of feels like it was a separate story that then got turned into a series.
Yeah, well, I guess I want to also kind of mention the interesting publication history of Mermaid Saga. It's that it didn't run like as a continuous series in the same way like a lot of other like weekly serialized works were. Mermaid Saga was published as an anthology series over the course of like many years. Basically, Takahashi would write one of these stories like yearly. She would take a break from, at the time, she was still doing like Yuruseyatsu, Maze, and Okuku concurrently when she first started this. So she'd take a break for those for like a week, and then she'd write these stories, and then the next year she'd continue and do a new installment of it. And there was like sometimes a 2 year break between these, and basically this continued on from 1984 all the way to like 1990 straight. 1994. So over the course of 10 years, like these 16 chapters were published, like roughly a story every year. So Takahashi was clearly like revisiting like the lore she created in this first chapter and then expanding on it each year as she returned to it. But it's interesting in that way that you also see kind of a little bit of an evolution in like her concept of the idea as the story progresses, and also the art and setting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because that was my reading was because normally you can tell when there's a difference between like a mangaka just doesn't care about their lore and is making it up on the fly, and when there's been a significant gap of time that things just kind of misalign slightly. And Mermaid Saga definitely fell in the like second half of that. Like, okay, it's still the same basic idea, you've just skimmed it a little.
Yeah, these were like written as like one-off stories initially. I don't think she even had the idea that she'd bring Mana back for future installments. But then she decided to do that in the third story onward. But you clearly see that she kind of solidifies and the rules of how it works. But in this 1st chapter, it's just probably written as like a kind of a self-contained thing. So it works for what it needs to in the context of it, but not with much thought for the future.
Yeah. Because there was definitely the part of my brain that's the same part of my brain of going like, how would I survive this horror movie? Was going in full gear on this, going like, now, hold on, if you've got to kill a mermaid to make, you'd think you'd want to like maximize the amount of people you could feed, and then I'm like, hold on. It's a magic mermaid ritual. It doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah.
Aya is sacrificed, her meat is cut off, and the next day, Maya is served the piece of mermaid flesh, and she eats it. Just seems to actually go about relatively unscathed, which really good for her, but like going through the rest of the series, like what an amazing rarity that is.
No, it's like a once in 1,000 years kind of thing that someone doesn't react to the mermaid's flesh so violently. So they really managed to pick someone who had a good constitution to adapt to the flesh.
We've kind of skimmed over this, but occasionally we've been checking out with a character named Yuta, who has been wandering the mountain outside of the village. Up until this point in the story, he hasn't really been doing anything other than we get panels showing he's there. It's finally right after Mana has eaten the mermaid flesh that Yuta asks for directions from a group of old women in the forest, prompting possibly one of my favorite panel exchanges in this entire read, where essentially he's, hey, I'm looking for some directions. And then the old women, rather than immediately answering his question, go, do you have any friends or family who would care if you went missing? And he just goes, well, I mean, no. And then they stab him.
Yeah, it's pretty great how quick they are. As soon as he says, no, I'm all alone, they just immediately stab him, and then just keep stacking him until he's like a bloody mess.
Yep, and I'm just like, oh, Yuta, you just answered that question without any, like, concern or... Nope, yeah, no. No one would miss me if I was gone. All by my lonesome out here. And then that also brings up my second favorite running thing in Mermaid Saga is corpse pits. People just always have a corpse pit handy because that's where Yuta gets thrown.
Don't you?
Corpse pits and dungeons. Everyone in Japan.
Again, I would have checked this out so much earlier. It was like connotated that this was how dark it was.
It needed to be on the back of the panel. Corpse pits everywhere, and every family in Japan has a personal dungeon.
I mean, no, but sure.
Yeah, no, the cover should have been Yuta waking up and seeing like the corpse of a mermaid lying.
Or there could have been like one of the lost souls, or like a transforming mermaid like in the background behind her, or something, so it wouldn't look so flowery and like demure.
Yeah. And, we've kind of skimmed around of it, but if you didn't do your reading, shame on you. Yuta's an immortal, so all that stabbing didn't do much. He woke up.
It probably felt good.
Probably not.
I don't know. They feel pain.
I'm talking about for them, get some of that stress. Get some of that stress out.
I mean,
yeah, they seem pretty eager to kill.
Well, at least they do the smart thing of asking, "Do you have anyone who would miss you?"
Mm-hmm.
But no, Yuta wakes up to face to face with essentially the mermaid's corpse. Yuta's entire journey he's been on is to find a mermaid, and he got so close. But where you find the corpse of a mermaid, you can assumedly find a mermaid. Mana is being taken out because it is her 15th birthday. She has eaten the flesh of a mermaid, and she is not a horrible monster, which is good. She is being taken where she is not quite sure, but everyone else is firmly in the plan that she is going to be cut up and eaten. I'm not 100% sure if that's revealed right now, but it gets revealed soon enough.
Yeah, it's a little bit later.
Yeah. But then Yuta breaks into the procession with a headless mermaid body and throws it on the ground. And
straight to the point.
It's just like, hey, there's a dead mermaid here. I need to know about mermaids. And they're like, that's the guy we killed. Quick, kill him again. And in the confusion of this entire village just being ready to murder someone on the drop of a hat, Yuta grabs Mana and just takes her as a hostage and runs.
That's when he finds out that her feet have been bound.
Yeah, because she was in like a palisade? Yeah, something. Palanquin. That's what those cars. Palisades are different.
No, wooden shackles. Palanquin is like kind of a carriage they were going to carry her on.
Right, she hadn't got put on one yet. Okay, whatever. But yeah, her feet are bound together is the main thing. And he's just like, that explains a lot. And this is also where we get the exposition that someone who eats the flesh of a mermaid is immortal. Well, they can be harmed, actually. They can't die, which is basically the theme of this entire saga is like, yeah, you live forever, but like a lot of things can still hurt you. Immortality
can be still a painful and lonely existence. Not all it's cracked up to be. Often the theme of many an immortality tale.
Yep. And Yuta's whole thing is he wants to find a mermaid so that he can not be immortal anymore.
Which is counter to the current lore, which is you need to find a mermaid in order to potentially be immortal. The potentially part is not really advertised so much.
Yeah. I mean, like, he really doesn't know, like, if finding a mermaid will help him, but he's hopeful because, like, the elder in his village, when he was fraught with, like, the, fact that he was aging, but his wife wasn't aging, and he's feeling terrified about that. She just recommended, maybe a mermaid can help him. Maybe a mermaid has an answer for you. So he's been searching all this time in hopes of an answer, in hopes that, like, a mermaid can tell him that, there is a way. Unfortunately, these mermaids are not so helpful.
Yeah.
Well, they are helpful because don't they have a conversation addressing exactly that unfortunately they can't reverse it?
Well, these mermaids don't have a good answer for him. They say like, we don't have like a solution, because actually the person he talks to isn't even the mermaid. It is the nanny who is like himself, who is just like, someone who had eaten the mermaid flesh and now it's like an immortal. Yeah. And like, so they don't have an answer, but the journey they're still going on is to like find a way to undo their immortality. And so they're hoping to meet a mermaid or someone who knows how to do that.
How I interpreted the scene was the fact that even though she was not a mermaid herself, she'd spent enough time around the mermaids and basically told them there is no way to become a normal human being again. Just flat out, the only solution is death.
I mean, she didn't find a way, and her mermaids didn't tell her anything. But I mean, they're still going on the journey to find a way and to hope that there is a mermaid out there who knows an answer. Because there are clearly different mermaids out there, as we meet in the next story with Asago, who, you know, has like a kind of different lifestyle than these mermaids. So like the series never like ends up getting to the point where they end up finding someone who knows an answer, but like that's kind of the kind of idea of their journey. But yeah, that's like the tragedy of the nanny's character is like she doesn't know any other way to live other than alongside these mermaids, helping them maintain their youth forever, well, and just living as part of their community.
And like the big thing that this group of mermaids they're with, because all these women are mermaids, spoilers, is these group of people don't seem to even know that decapitating someone kills an immortal. Because during this first chapter, what they keep saying is there's a special poison you can make from a rotting mermaid's carcass mixed with herbs, and that kills immortals. And to them, that's the only way. Which, considering how everyone else in the series tells them, no, you just cut their head off. Probably a narrative decision, but also it, like, in the context of the narrative as a whole, like, no, these mermaids just didn't know everything. They thought this was how you did it.
Yeah, there are really two methods in order to kill immortals and mermaids. It's like decapitation and then the mermaid poison, the poison made from soaking like a mermaid's corpse in like various poisons. And yeah, we really see as the series goes on them leaning more on the decapitation more so than the poison.
Because it requires less mermaid corpses as fuel, because like
those are kind of in short supply.
It's like, if the only way to kill your enemies is to kill one of your own to boil into a, like, oh, well. Yeah, Yuta came back to the village because they fell down a hole. They ran into the horrible fish monsters, referred to as lost souls. And these are people who eat the mermaid flesh and then it goes bad, which is 999 times out of 1,000. You turn into the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, and pretty much immediately what ran through my head was just, you know, Disney's Little Mermaid. You poor unfortunate souls.
Poor unfortunate souls. Make your choice.
This one wanted to be, choice. This one wanted to be taller, and he got that wish. But no, they fall down the hole where this village has been farming young women. Is revealed also in the next scene. Essentially what's happened is they kidnap a bunch of girls it's when they say they start to get old. So I think probably like every 100 years, although it's probably maybe a little more often than that. And they raise them up and then they feed them the mermaid flesh. And because it's literally only 1 out of every 1,000 times, they just have an entire water cave network of these lost souls living below the village. Because they still desperately want mana, they run into a woman named Kajika, who has a poison-tipped spear, which is the way they kill the lost soul, but she gets horribly injured in the fight. So Yuta says, I am going to bring her back to get medical treatment, because Yuta's just a good guy. And also, he desperately wants to know about mermaids, and they're, at this point, pretty obviously a village full of mermaids. As long as he's not bringing mana back to them, he's pretty much okay. And that's when he has the conversation with the caretaker where it's revealed, hey, I'm looking for a way to die. And she goes, well, that's just easy. Cut off your own head or drink this mermaid poison. And he's like, no, I want to die a different way. And she's like, yeah, I mean, cool, but... And he's like, I know it's a weird request, okay?
Yeah, I mean, Yuta wants to be able to age and live like a normal person. So that's what he wants. He wants to die a natural death rather than, just be killed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the journey they're on, is to find a way to be able to just grow old. That
scene is ended with the caretaker going like, are you sure I've got a poison spear right here? And then stabs him. And Yuta is then dying as he has been poisoned with a mermaid poison that kills immortals.
And at the same time, Mana has been trying to walk again.
Yeah.
So at first, Yuta has left her behind because she has tried to stand up, and she doesn't really manage to see. She flops over again. So he thinks she's safe because she can't move anyway. So he leaves her behind.
It's really miraculous.
Mana just, I guess, through great determination, like she kind of wills herself to like learn to walk after so long just being confined to bed. I would like to think that probably the fact that she ate the mermaid flesh might have helped her out in terms of like healing those muscles, and so that probably helped her kind of recover quickly. But yeah.
This was also what spurred my theory that the leg shackles were a recent thing. As she was getting older, they said, "Oh, you've come down with an illness. Let's keep your legs because that way it's at least a little bit more believable that she remembered how to walk." Because again, horror movie brain kind of going through. I'm like, well, if you really wanted them to be like incapable of walking away from you, you would just never teach them how to walk, right? Like,
yeah.
So I think that's at least why I think the shackling was a more recent thing, but
yeah. Probably only in the last couple of years, since like she is weak enough that it's like takes some effort, but you know, it's not impossible. She knows how to do it. So yeah, but it's because she starts walking and that she encounters women from the village, including Kajika, and they capture her and take her back to the main estate where she encounters Yuta being stabbed.
That starts the long chain of events in Mermaid Saga of either Yuta or Mana running into a scene just as the other's in danger, and I love it because it happens every single story.
They both always have to like rescue each other from like imminent death and certain danger. So there's some very cool action scenes and escape sequences.
Yeah, and through some actions, the house starts burning down. And in an escape, they find themselves back in the corpse pit / water caves. Yuta is still dying because he's poisoned and just goes like, "No, Mana, you have to suck the poison out."
Yeah.
And
she somehow knows how to do this.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, all she has to do is like, I guess, suck it out from the wound, I guess. You know. Shaky logic, but works.
It's 80s movie logic, like, no, I got bit by a snake, you gotta suck the poison out. But unrelated, that strip of clips of panels together, that's going in my bank of like no context manga posts. It's just like, no, you've got to suck it out. And then it's just a look of Mana going like, what? And then just So with the poison gone, Yuta starts healing naturally, but that's not enough time because the mermaids have decided that, well, if they're in the caves, we can just flood them out with our mermaid magic. And they do some form of ritual that causes the caves to fill with water. At which point they are flushed, Yuta and Mana are flushed out into the open ocean, where they begin being attacked by the mermaids, who are now in like full mermaid form with their horrible fish mouths. The main thing is, we kind of skimmed over it because it's kind of a minor detail you probably wouldn't immediately notice. Yuta makes note when he first enters the village that all the women appear to have the same face. And when one of the mermaids bites Mana, she drinks some of her blood, and then her face is Mana's face. Yuta responds to that with like, "That's not your face," and stabs that mermaid through the chest. And I'm like,
oh no, he stabs her through the face.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yuta stabs a lot of mermaids. Yuta has a very large kill count in this manga.
Yeah, and a very large death count, both him and Mana.
I mean, when you're immortal. Yuta is fighting a whole bunch of mermaids underneath the water, and then eventually he and Mana get up onto the shore where the caretaker is waiting for them, who kind of essentially just expositions away the end of the story, which is that you two are free to go. You're no longer in the water anymore, and they've already turned into mermaids. Once they have turned into their beast form, there is no getting them back to like the pretending to be human form. So I guess I'm stuck here with them because I've already lived my life in service to them. I am immortal, but she obviously ate at a much older age because she's a very old woman.
Yeah.
So she is saying, I have been complicit in this activity. This is my punishment, is to watch over them until, I guess, eternity ends because she's not dying. So
yeah, a somber ending of self-exile for this character.
Yep. And
you get the implication that in her own way she did kind of care about Mana as she was raising her, like even beyond like raising her for just the nourishment. in many ways, like her attempt to like kill Mana was like this idea of a mercy kill because she, having lived this immortal life that's been so painful, didn't really want Mana to be subjected to that either. But of course, Mana is determined to live.
Yeah, and like the end of this chapter actually has like one of my favorite scenes between Yuta and Mana is as they're leaving the village. Yuta's kind of just going on about like, yeah, well, I had a wife and like I've lived 500 years, so living forever kind of sucks. I guess that's your existence now. And Mana, who's new to the whole thing, is just like, yeah, but I mean, we can keep doing different things until we eventually get bored of it. And hey, maybe we'll actually find a way to cure this thing. But if not, hanging out until existence becomes a chore doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah. Like, life is full of hardships, but in continuing to live, you'll find good things too. You'll be able to find, like, new things to make meaning of. And what's good about the ending, and it's good for these characters, is that now they have each other to kind of spend their lives with. In terms of like someone, who also is immortal like themselves. And that's like something that so many other characters will meet in the series are like afraid of. They're afraid of being alone, a lonely immortal existence, the worst thing. So that's kind of what makes the central relationship between the characters kind of special, is that like by having a companionship, having someone to rely on, it kind of makes living more worthwhile.
Yeah. One thing I want to point out, though, is if when we get through like other people who are stuck with his exact same fate, because we got Yuta's backstory at the very beginning of this. He lived an immortal existence with his wife until she was like 80. So he's got like 70 years of maintaining a relationship as an immortal, which compared to every other immortal character we run into has got to be like a high score.
Yeah. But we don't know how many like relationships Masato's had with like different butter figures later on, but
he might be up there, but it's definitely close.
I think on that note, it's probably a case of, and I don't mean this to use this as a disparaging term, but if broken people are given immortality, they remain broken. But if you are given it to someone who generally is seriously injured and generally is a good person, as most things turn out, this good person continues to be a good person no matter what. And that's why he's able to maintain healthy relationships, maintain the longest relationship, and is still able to continue to not only want to better himself, but to better those around him. He takes on odd jobs. Whenever he interacts with people, he tries to protect them and bring out their best and everything like that. And people gravitate towards him. Whereas the others are kind of outlaws or in some way fractured from society.
Or children.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful point. Yuta is a participant in the world, even though like he can't stay in one place for too long. He still gets involved with other people and communities. Whereas other immortals that we meet in the series live more isolated existences, and oftentimes they became immortals through very traumatic circumstances that kind of messed them up. Whereas Yuta was definitely like kind of disturbed by all his friends like dying from eating the flesh, but him still living on, and then kind of the sadness of his wife like becoming afraid of him as she aged, but he didn't. But because he had spent so long around other people in Wit community, he kind of has more of a healthy mindset about living and interacting with other people than others who are like incredibly desperate for companionship and do twisted things in order to secure it.
Anyway, that's the first story in this anthology. The next one is The Village of the Fighting Fish, which is Yuta's backstory. It doesn't explicitly say that at the beginning, but you can pick that up because it's a historical piece. This appears to be like 300 years in the past. And then at one point, Yuta says he's been an immortal for 200 years. So some quick math is it's 300 years ago.
Yeah, this is like Sengoku period, where it's like the first story, like the main timeline takes place from the 80s through the 90s. And then, like this story, Village of Fighting Fish, and then the Ash Princess one are like flashbacks to a time like hundreds of years ago where Yuta hadn't met Mana yet.
This one actually starts off a little bit different in that it focuses fully on a character by the name of Rin, who is a young girl, is probably a fair statement. I want to say she's probably around 15 just because that's what she looks like, who is the captain of a pirate, not pirate vessel. They do the thing you see in children's media all the time. Like, no, we're the good pirates. We only extort money from people, but we don't kill them.
We're charging a toll, a toll. It's not piracy.
Toll for traveling through our territory.
Yeah. They're pirates, but they're good pirates, as opposed to the evil pirates who are the pirates from
Sakagami
Island, because they pass by them in the water and they're like, hey, how's the piracy business going? Oh, it's good. We got about 10% of their that's a lot of blood on your ship. Yeah, it is. Okay. Essentially, they kind of set the scene for what's happening here. What also sets the scene is when Rin returns home, her younger brother and sister are like, hey, another dead body washed up on shore. And Rin just goes, oh, again? That happens all the time. Oh, man, this guy looks pretty cute, too. Oh, well, shame he's dead like everyone else. Go bury him. And there's like a mass grave of people who have been washing up dead on shore, and you're like, yeah, piracy's doing well.
Yeah. But, and it's all leading to mystery because the Sakagami pirates are often among the bodies that are washed up, so that's what makes Rin suspicious that they may be looking for the mermaid.
And it also follows the theme that if there is a female character who's not Mana, she needs to find Yuta attractive. Wait, hold on. Does that track through all of them? It tracks through a lot of them. It's more than once.
Well, she doesn't really find him attractive at first. He just comments on how young he was. But later, as the story develops, like, she does grow feelings for him.
Mm-hmm. She does just compliment the fact that, oh man, his body's perfectly preserved, like, as opposed to cut up.
Yes.
That's Jay's criteria. Perfectly preserved. Good. Rin, we get revealed the reason she's captain of this pirate vessel is she is the daughter of the former captain who is lying on his deathbed. A fact he's more aware of than she really wants to be.
Understandably so. I mean, that is her father.
Yeah, and essentially what she's saying is, I know those Sakagami pirates, they are hunting for mermaids. They must be. And if they can find the flesh of a mermaid, I'm going to feed it to you. That way you're not going to die. And he's just like, maybe don't do that. And she's like, no, I'm going to do that. And he's like, okay, you're not going to find one anyway, so, but.
No, she comes from a good place of, like, not wanting her only father to die, just wanting him to live. But, he's kind of made peace with the ephemerality of his life.
Yeah, because he's just like, I don't really have to worry about you. You're clearly excelling in your job. You're respected by the village. Like, you really don't need me anymore. So
yeah.
I mean, she's come into her own as the leader of the village, but she...
But she still wants her daddy.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yep. We cut to, for the first time in a lot of times, Yuta digging himself out of a grave. Where they then get revealed that Yuta isn't dead anymore. And he explains that he was hired by a woman named Isago, who wants him to hunt a mermaid for her. Essentially, he's revealed that he's immortal. He's eaten the flesh of a mermaid, and he took the job because he wants to find another mermaid so he can not be immortal anymore. But because Yuta's a good guy, he immediately bails on the thing he was hired to do to just help out around the village because Rin says something along the lines of, yeah, there's probably a mermaid out there, and if you stay around here, you'll maybe find one, I guess. And
well,
Yuta's
he
like,
tries to leave by boat to kind of find the place where the mermaid is, but then Rin sees him leaving, and she tries to dive and catch up to him, even though she's wearing armor. She sinks like a rock to the surface, and she doesn't learn to swim. But yeah, basically, when Yuta goes to kind of rescue her, that's when she says, you just stay around here and help us out, and then maybe later we'll go look for the mermaid.
Gotcha. That's right. That's a really good scene. I can't remember for why I forgot that. Because she just sinks straight to the bottom.
It's so funny that even when she's like sunk way to the bottom of the ground, she's like still trying to swim.
Yeah, she's like mid doggy paddle, like belly on the bottom of the ocean. Like Yuta's pretty much just like fit into domestic life. He's going about shopping and everything. When eventually this has clearly been going on for long enough that the woman Isago is just like, hey, where's the guy I hired to solve my problem for me? Sees him walking around and decides to stab him because she comes to the correct but the wrong way to get there conclusion that he's eaten the flesh of a mermaid. So he must have found a mermaid and not told her.
Well, what tips her off is that one of the kids is selling the mermaid scale that washed up on the beach alongside him. Mm-hmm. Then in like kind of the kid leads them back to Yuta and Rin, and then she sees Yuta's alive, and then she tests her theory that he might have been an immortal or by like stabbing him with her hairpin, and then she notices like the wound healed.
Yeah, because she well, does she notice he's healed when she comes back that night? Because she comes back to Rin's house and notices he's not like injured anymore. Because I don't think he heals immediately.
Yeah. Well, I think she had already been suspicious. She doesn't really comment outright whether she has noticed that or, there's something interesting. But I think she has her suspicions regardless because of the situation.
Yeah, regardless, she went to go grab a sword and confronts him again later that night over Rin's dying father. And there's a great exchange where Yuta's just like, I'm immortal. You literally can't threaten me with anything. You can only kill me and that's it. She's like, but I can threaten other people, and stabs Rin's father. And I'm like, I mean, Yuta, come on. What do you think was going to happen, buddy?
Don't brag, but like, don't humble brag of like, oh, I'm immortal, so you won't be able to hurt me.
Yeah. Not everyone else is like you. I don't think that the dad is going to be able to recover from that wound as easily as you.
And one of my favorite chapter breaks, because a lot of these longer stories are like 2 chapters split over a single break, is you're like, Isago stabs him through the chest and is like, you need to find me the flesh of a mermaid or he will die. Dun, dun, dun. End of chapter break. And then you're like, oh no, are they going to have to hurry and rush? And then the very beginning of the next chapter is Mana going like, oh no, you don't, grabbing the sword and kills Isago. And I'm like,
yeah,
wow.
That was great.
Like, not Mana, Rin.
Rin, yeah. But
Mana.
No.
She had strong Mana energy in that scene.
Yeah.
Look, if I need a character in this manga to grab a knife and stab someone unprompted, Mana is...
Yeah, she had very strong mana.
I was going to say top tier, but then I'm like, wait, no, one character outranks her, but probably not on purpose. Yeah, and so Isago is dead.
We head out to the location of where the mermaid is, which is like past like a rough current and whirlpool. And the Sakagami pirates are lying in wait for them to lead the way to the mermaid.
Yep. And they go into the middle of a whirlpool. Yuta finds the mermaid just swimming down there and starts chasing it. Unfortunately, the pirates attack, kidnap Rin. She's severely outnumbered. There's little effort there. And then start throwing spears into the water and then hit both the mermaid and Yuta.
It's okay, since he's immortal, as he'll tell everyone.
Yes, he does tell everyone that going
again.
Forward. Yeah. He gets that out of the way.
But at this point, like, the Sakagami pirates don't know, so they take his corpse back and they just throw it over the cliff on their island because they think he's dead for good.
Which is interesting that they took the body to the cliff to dump off rather than just not bring it in the boat.
Yeah. It's a bit of a convenience.
It's Mermaid Saga. If you have a corpse, you need to dump it into something. You can't just leave it be. Yeah, so they bring it back. Rin is captured. She is just there with a guard who decides to sexually assault her, but is stopped by Isago being alive and saying, no, don't do that. Stop. What's wrong with you? And meanwhile, Rin's like, wait, no, I killed you. And she's like, yeah, I'm immortal.
In case you didn't know.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm actually a mermaid, and mermaids are immortal. Oh, wait, no, she's not. Wait.
Yes, she is. She specifically says that she's like a land mermaid, and there are some others that live in the water.
Mermaids don't have tail, and then
2 legs.
No, so she's a type of mermaid that has 2 legs. She's like kind of the mermaids that we met in the previous chapter. Like when they live on land, they have 2 legs. But in her case, when she is like about to give birth in that form, she can carry a child for like nearly 3 years. But when she's about to give birth and she needs nourishment, she needs the flesh of like a mermaid from the sea.
I don't think they reveal she's a mermaid in this scene, do they? I think they reveal it later.
She references the fact that there are different types of mermaids, first step. And second, that she has 2 legs because she's questioned on that before. And she's like, yeah, there are mermaids who have 2 legs who live on land. And I believe this isn't the same scene, but she alludes to the fact that they feed on other mermaids.
Yeah. The mermaids of the sea, which we know from the first chapter, are the women who, when they change form, they can no longer change back. So those mermaids that have turned into horrible fish people, they're essentially food for the other mermaids. Mm-hmm. And what she says is, I am pregnant with the child of a man who...
Her previous husband.
Her previous husband who is killed by the Sakagami pirates.
Yeah.
Talk about revenge.
No, it's all a big elaborate revenge scheme from the saga, which honestly good on her.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But like, so the way I took it was that I thought the way like because I thought she was immortal until it gets revealed fully that she was a mermaid. Maybe I skipped something, but at least my interpretation was because she's an immortal woman, like in order to give birth, she can't like nothing will develop until she has like an immortal. I'm just realizing that makes no sense then with how immortality works.
She's just a type of mermaid. She's a land mermaid. And mermaids just carry their pregnancies for 3 years as opposed to humans.
Okay, yeah. I thought they just carried their pregnancies indefinitely until they ate the flesh of another mermaid.
No, their gestation period's just 3 years.
And that's why she waited until now to do this plan to get Sakagami's pirates to go out and hunt the mermaid because she needed the flesh for her child.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder how far they would have gotten if she just had prenatal gummies.
Is that like mermaid jerky? Like,
I don't know. Maybe they have ashes.
They have a lot of things that prompt a lot of questions. Yeah, so that's essentially her plan. Was I was tricking these pirates into getting me some mermaid flesh so I can have my baby. And Rin is just like, well, okay, you did just save me, I guess, so I'm not going to kill you again because clearly that doesn't do anything. She's bound,
so she can't fight back at this point anyway.
Yeah, so she is brought to the pirate party, which is amazing because they've got the mermaid flesh cut out like sashimi, but it's all on one big plate in front of the pirate boss, who, to the best of my ability, did not get a name.
He's just the Sakagami pirate boss. He doesn't have like a
everyone just calls him boss, so he is eating all of the mermaid flesh by himself, which I mean, this is only for me, but I'll go into it. It gave me strong vibes of Penguin Drum. There is a character who eats giant platters of fugu blowfish because it's a proof he's a man, and I'm like, yep, that's
proof that you have a lot of money. I mean, that's really it, but okay.
Did you know each piece has a minuscule amount of poison? I am eating 100 servings. Why?
What's more manly than that? Eating a bunch of poison and proving that you can live through it.
Yeah, which Pirate Boss does. He is constantly eating mermaid flesh during this party, and everyone else at the party says like, you only need one piece of that to be immortal, right? The rest of us could also be immortal. And he's like, nah. And then Yuta burst into the scene because he's immortal. And then he tells everyone he's immortal. And they're like, hey, wait, he's immortal. No, Isago's the one who goes, yeah, he's immortal. The only way you can kill him is by cutting off his head. To which the pirate boss goes like, well, then the person who gets me his head gets to be immortal. And then a whole bunch of people sacrifice their lives at the chance of becoming immortal. Because Yuta kills a lot of people.
And even when they're dying and they're like begging the boss for flesh, he just shoves them away. It's like, you get his head first. Then you can view.
It would cost you nothing. Just this would only benefit you. no.
He's a very greedy and childish person. We'd seen earlier that he got very upset at someone and just killed them instantly because... And then he was like lamenting, the like ephemerality of human life, or like, how quickly life passes. And then here that kind of thing happens again. Is that he gets stabbed by a sword from Yuta and he like reacts very like pettily, like, that really hurt.
Oh, but I guess I'm immortal now. But that distracts him long enough that he doesn't pay attention to his plate of mermaid flesh. His pirate lackeys, I suppose, immediately jump on the chance to be immortal and all start eating it. And then they all start turning into lost souls and dying. And he's just like, oh man, what's going on there? And Ichigo just goes, oh yeah, it's actually really unlikely for you to become immortal by eating mermaid flesh. Most people just turn into those things. There's a solid like silence panel before he just goes, well, I'm glad I'm so lucky then. The next page. Pop. Oh no, I guess I was just really delayed on turning into one.
Yeah, right after he's flicking his blade, as so good, like, blade-licking bandits do in manga.
Yep. It's very fortuitous that it happens at exactly that moment, but also not, because he turns into a giant hulking monster that Yuta fights for the remainder of this chapter, where essentially, while fighting him, Yuta, having eaten the flesh of a mermaid, jumps off into the ocean. I think Rin's pirate friends come up and save them by harpooning the pirate boss.
Yeah.
Mermaid Ichigo lands in the water, and everyone's like, oh no, she's so distraught. She'd rather die than be captured. And Rin and Yuta are both like, no, she was a mermaid, and now she gets to be free with her baby.
Yeah, I love the smirk she gives as she's like leaping off to Yuta and Rin. And then, we know that she's a mermaid and she just transformed her mermaid form when she went into the water. I love it how Ichigo just acted like during the entire scene. She was just chilling back and she was eating her own piece of flesh, but she was just watching the havoc go around. And then she gets her like karmic kind of revenge on the boss and the entire pirate gang by them all getting like turned into monsters and slaughtered.
Yeah. She has a really nice ending for someone who murdered Rin's father.
Well, no, Rin's father is still alive. It's mentioned that he recovered the next day and told them what was going on, told the other villagers what was going on. So, she did a pretty villainous thing of like stabbing him. But she gets kind of she gets the win at the end. Really, like, everything went according to her plan.
There's a really nice scene too with Yuta and Rin of is it with Jay? You would know. You sent me this panel. Is this chapter where she's just like, I had a dream, or is that another one?
About the dream of you and I together?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was this chapter.
Yeah. It's a really nice.
It's so romantic.
Aw. Do you want to stay here forever? And he's just like, maybe. And then she's just like, but I'm not immortal. And then Yuta's just like, oh, not immortal? Well, guess I'm gonna hit the dusty trail. Because he's got to find a way to die naturally.
I mean, he's got daddy's approval. I mean, go for it, man.
Yeah. Her dad was mentioning, hey, Rin really likes you. You should stay here with us. But for Yuta, it's like, he just doesn't want to, like, kind of deal with the heartbreak of, like,
it's more on him because I feel like she would accept him because she fully understands he's immortal and she's obviously encountered the mermaid. So it's not her so much as it's him.
Look, I'm just saying, when you're Yuta, a woman willing to spend her life with you comes along every single village. Getting to live a normal life.
No, I mean, that's true. Rin is not the only person who makes this offer to Yuta, but no, he just...
We'll get to my favorite, but...
Yeah.
Next up, the next chapter, we pop back in with Mana and Yuta. I think there's a soft implication there is a bit of a time skip from when the last time we saw them.
Yeah, I think every installment that checks in on Yuta and Mana takes place in the year the story was published in. So this would take place about 2 years-ish, I think, after the first one.
They are traveling. They clearly haven't been together that long because there's still some kind of like distance between them.
Yeah, actually, now that I'm noticing that they mentioned they left the village a certain time ago. So I think this takes place just a little bit after the first one, actually.
That makes sense, actually, because Mana acknowledges a cat as if she's never seen one before.
Yeah.
But I guess this one's the exception. The other ones definitely imply they've been traveling together for at least 5 years.
There's one that takes place in 1992.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like other ones, time passes. So,
but for this one anyway, Mana is still fresh out of the indoctrination cult because she follows a cat and wanders into the middle of the road where she gets hit by a truck.
Mhm.
And if this were a lesser series, she'd wake up in some kind of fantasy world. But luckily, that's not what happened.
That time I got reincarnated in another role that I was already immortal. So just imagine she gets isekai'd into the world of Inuyasha. This is how she gets transported into the feudal fairy tale past rather than going down a well.
Oh man, there's a character named Rin in my reality.
There are a lot of similar named characters in this new world that I find myself in. There's a Toe instance in it here too.
Interesting. But essentially, there is a bunch of hubbub as everyone's like, "Oh my god, a girl got hit by a truck. Well, take her to the doctor." And then the doctor says, like, "Yeah, she's dead." But then Yuta comes looking. He's like, "Hey, I heard a girl got hit by a truck," and he's just like, and then the doctor just goes, "Yeah, strangest thing. She just kind of got up without any hassle and wandered off," which is an amazing lie because it would literally only work for Yuta to readily believe that. Like,
yeah. Well, the policeman also accompanies Yuta when he's like telling, "Oh, the girl has gone missing," and the reason like he's like telling them, "Oh, she's gone missing," rather than she like died, is because then they might ask him to see the body, but he's keeping the body for himself for purposes we'll find out very soon.
Yuta believes it right away because he's like, "Well, yeah, she's immortal. She healed and walked away. I got to go find her." But it's been revealed that Dr. Hina has done this repeatedly.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine he's got a much more elaborate lie for when this has happened previously.
Because it'd be suspicious if he gives the thing just, "Oh, no, they just left every time." I think other cases, maybe the person who died like just didn't have like any connection to someone who had missed the body. And that's how he was able to like get away with like spearing it away to the Kanagi Manor.
Yeah, because essentially Yuta goes off on a wild goose chase with the policeman. They have some discussions about some exposition where he hears that there's a mermaid buried somewhere in the forest, but essentially he's looking for a person who's not there. As we cut back to Mana, whose body has been taken to
the Kanagi house in the Mermaid's Forest,
which is an abandoned mansion for not abandoned, but it's on the way out and in disrepair. It appears to only have 2 residents, a old woman by the name of Sawa and a young woman with stark white hair and a wrapped arm by the name of Toa.
Yeah, and like Sawa is upset at the doctor bringing another corpse in the house, but like Toa is saying, "Oh, I need to do this because my arm hurts. I need to have it changed right away." And we see that the doctor is preparing to cut off Mana's arm to transplant it onto Toa.
As they're in the process of doing this, Yuta, who has been looking for where a mermaid might be buried in the forest because he's having trouble finding Mana and just kind of assumes she's probably found whatever trouble is in this region, which is a safe assumption normally. He winds up in the manor and just goes, "Hey, wait, whoa, Mana's in danger. What's going on here?" Toa is just like, "Oh, that's a weird guy. Well, I'm just gonna have my dog attack you." Yuta fights a dog for
Zombie 5 Lost Soul Dog.
Yep.
All horrific looking. Big sharp ass teeth. And it like chomps at his neck and crushes it instantly.
Yep.
So that's one of the pretty brutal way to die.
When he comes back, they just go, "Oh, well, he's immortal. Guess he's going in the family dungeon."
Just a mainstay of every Japanese household, of every aristocratic Japanese household, as we see in the series.
Like this time at least makes a little sense because it appears like this is a very old house in the middle of nowhere that might have been like a shrine at one point. It's later on when it's a house in the middle of a town that you're just like, wait a second. They also find out that the cut on Mana has healed and that she must be immortal. So there is an idea gets in Toa's head that she reveals that she has been having to replace her body over and over again, as through some exposition we find out that Towa and Sawa are actually identical twins. She had an illness as a child that she was fed the blood of a mermaid, and that has made her body immortal, but not
no, it's made her appearance outside immortal, but internally she's still aging.
That's kind of what I was trying to say. I realized like mid-sentence, I'm like, well, no, her organs are also, she's still an old woman. She just appears to be a young woman. And essentially she has been having to replace her limbs as
mainly her arm that is it's kind of cursed in a lost soul-y kind of way. Like every few years she replaces it with like an arm from a young girl's corpse, and then it is normal for a little while, but then it slowly warps back into deformed lost soul appearance.
And she has come to the conclusion that if I cut off my head and put it on Mana's body, it will give me a brand new body that no longer has any illnesses and is immortal. Matt, reading this, just went like, well, no, there's actually like one of the most documented ways to kill an immortal person is exactly what you're describing to happen. But
right, but she's like kind of deluded.
Yeah. She no one thinks this is a good idea. Towa just wants to do it because Towa's a little crazy.
No, she's been like kind of warped by her traumatic life up till this point.
Because it was actually revealed in the part where the family dungeon down there, Towa was living there for a good chunk of her life.
Decades. Because she was living there all the while Sawa was living a full life of getting married and having children. And even like past the point where her father had passed away.
Oh, I thought it was when her father passed away that it wasn't until he died that Sawa came down and let her out.
Yeah, no, I mean, her father had passed away before she could be let out. So
okay.
It took decades for that to happen.
Yeah,
that's why she resents her so much. She resents Sawa so much because she got to live the full life that she never could. And that's why she's so like mean and cruel to her, and like she has this entire scheme of wanting to get the mermaid's flesh just so that she could punish Sawa by eating it and turning her immortal so she could have the same agony she has, but now she has like a elderly body instead of the younger body.
We get to that because essentially they're going to go through with the operation, but Dr. Shinai says, no, I'm not doing this. This is crazy. To which Towa goes, I can figure it out. I'll just do it anyway. And Sawa finally goes, please don't kill her. I will show you where the mermaid flesh is. That has been passed down from the family for generations. I was the living heir. I know where it is. And Towa's just like, yeah, I always knew you knew where it was. Now you're going to finally tell me. Cool. I'm going to bring the girl as backup, but we'll figure it out. And all
the while that this is happening, Yuta was locked in the dungeon. It's like fighting the lost soul dog in a pretty great fight scene where he's like just fending it off in his spear and ultimately beats it by like throwing a cloth over it so that it like ends up getting stuck in the bars, like its feet like clomps down on the bars of the jail, and then he like stabs it through to trap it with his spear, like right to the head. It's pretty brutal.
It's pretty great, but it's also why my notes for this chapter are Yuta fights a dog because he fights that dog for the majority of the plot. So they make it to the Mermaid's Well, which is just another corpse pit, because everyone has a corpse pit in Mermaid Saga. Keep up.
Do you guys have one? I thought that everyone had one. Where else would you keep your curses?
Oh, wait, hold on. I've just been keeping them like outside. We're supposed to bury them? Oh, no.
That's just gross. Just keeping them outside.
Well, that explains all the ghouls. I mean, okay, we're all learning lessons here. But no, there is a mermaid's corpse at the bottom of this corpse pit where Towa just goes, well, I'm not going down there. And then just goes, hey, Mana, you're immortal, and pushes her down. You can come back up when you get me a piece of that mermaid flesh. And Mana's just like, I don't And then she's like, well, that's too bad, because there's also a lost soul down there. What? And then there's a lost soul down there. But luckily, Yuta has finished fighting the dog, so second Mana's in danger. That's not true. Mana gets some fight time with the lost soul. I'm doing her a disservice, but Yuta...
No, Mana is never helpless in these stories. Like, she always fights back. Like, even after the point where Yuta, like, comes down to, like, fight off the lost soul, like, he gets knocked back, and then she picks up, like, an axe and starts trying to attack the lost soul.
Yeah.
So.
Mana is never helpless. Mana just doesn't have whatever, like, curse deal Yuta did to get that super strength of his, because, jeez, does Yuta do some crazy things.
Yeah, like pull off the pillar that the mermaid is impaled on, like just with brute strength, like off the side of the surface of the cave.
Yeah,
just impale the lost soul right to the head with it.
Yeah, because it's been revealed that this mermaid is not dead. She is just pinned to the wall. The second Yuta kills the lost soul, Toa jumps down because there's no longer any real threat. There's Yuta and Mana, but they aren't against her in the traditional sense. It's then we get the reveal that I didn't want the flesh to eat. I want to make you suffer, Sawa. Specifically because she mentions something that was alluded to in the backstory bits we got before, but it's kind of confirmed here that Sawa always knew the mermaid blood wouldn't make you immortal.
Well, she knew that it was a poison, and that no one had ever gained immortality or like successfully gained immortality. But I think that there's like an ambiguity that she genuinely did want to like help her sister through her illness. But at the same time, like she also was well aware of the risk and well aware, knew that it could go wrong.
There is also the strong implication that what Sawa, in all fairness, the implication is from Toa, who's not in the right state of mind. But Toa makes the claim, you were just using me as a test. If I had not been poisoned like this, you would have taken it because you would have known it was safe. You were like happy there was a chance to test it on me. And is also, Toa's resentful of her life because as she's force feeding her sister, Sawa just goes limp. And then Dr. Shinai, who was there, just goes, yeah, she was a very old woman. She had a heart attack because this is a terrifying situation. And like she had a few years left at best. You kind of just accelerated that. What were you doing, Toa? And Toa just goes like, well, I literally lived entirely for revenge. And now I've got nothing. I'm going to sit here. Could the rest of you just burn this building to the ground? I'll just die in it.
Hide
cool.
my shame.
Yeah, that is strong. Like, please pretend you didn't see anything. My plan failed. I am going to die in shame now.
Yeah, she just completely gives up on life after this point. The tragedy of her character is that she was so blindsided by her revenge and her resentment of Sawa that she didn't realize that there was someone right there who loved her and wanted to spend a life with her in the doctor.
Well, like,
and that's kind of a tragedy. So.
Yeah, because what we get revealed is that Yuta makes the educated guess when he's talking to Dr. Sheena is like, hey, you were her fiance, weren't you? That's why you kept checking up on her. And he's just like, yeah. And I kept telling her to run away with me. And she kept saying she didn't want to. So I was here with her, supporting her. But like, it's the like extra hit of just like, she could have left at any point. She didn't because she wanted to live for revenge.
Yeah.
And she didn't get it at the end. And
yeah, just the futility of her resentment. Really. Like, rather than see that, oh, she could have had this opportunity to like live a good life with someone who loved her, she instead chose to stay in a place she hated with someone she hated just out of spite.
Luckily, the next chapter is pretty easy to summarize. We get Dream's End, which, just because we've got a lot to talk about, unless anyone really wants to dig in on this, this is essentially Mana and Yuta are traveling. They fall, and Mana gets knocked out, and Yuta also gets knocked out, and...
No, they both die kind of in a last part, essentially, and then they get revived later, but the titular, well, not a titular, but like a lost soul guy called Big Eyes kind of encounters Mana and like takes her back to his cave.
Yeah, and we get like a very admittedly by the numbers like King Kong story, kind of like he likes her because she's pretty, and also like he is a lost soul, but he's still capable of talking. Meanwhile,
still has some sense of self left unlike other lost souls who are just like uncontrollable and can't control like their urges and their impulses to like kill. Like he has some semblance of sanity at times, but then other times he'll like lose control and go berserk. Yuta winds up with a hunter who's been hunting this guy, and that's essentially how the plot plays out. Is they find him, they go. Mana for a second is about to play the card of like he just looks like a monster. He's not really that bad, and then the hunter just goes like, "Look around. We're in a cave full of skeletons," and that's when Big Eyes just goes like, "Sometimes I black out and I don't remember doing any of this," and then they're all like, "Oh no." Well, it's the tragedy of the character is that, when he first ingested the mermaid's flesh and became the Lost Soul, like he had also had this blackout period where he like just kind of murdered everyone around, including his own parents. He did without even realizing, without having control over it. And that's kind of the implication with these other people that he's ended up dying. He just really has no control over his own strength and power when he kind of blacks out like that. And the fact that they're all in his cave kind of also brings the question that perhaps these were other people who are like hunting him or trying to hurt him, and then being put in like this stressful situation, he snaps. Just like as when the hunter shoots him, he does here and goes berserk.
Yeah, and like that's essentially the story though. Is the culmination is as he's dying, Mana's just like, "Hey, come on," and hugs him and says like, "It'll be all right. Your pain is over." And he's just like, "Yeah, you're right. Existence was literally pain." And yeah, it's a nice story, but it's also pretty formulaic and short. So
I think it's a good misunderstood monster story. It has shades of some ideas Takahashi would later explore with a character like Jinenji and Inuyasha. But yeah, I think what I liked about this story is that it also, continues the commentary the series has about a lot of these immortal characters like desperate for companionship, and the thing they're most afraid of is like a life full of rejection and loneliness. And I do think it's sweet that Mana, even in spite of like when Big Eyes loses control, he does attack her. Like even after that, still like she's trying to reach out to him and calm him down. At the end, comforts him and like is there with him at the end, like to give him a sense that he was still human. He's still like worthy of being like loved and treated well as a human being. Yeah. And so I think it's a nice little story with a poignant little ending. But yeah, I mean, it does follow similar beats to other misunderstood monster stories as well.
Next one we got up is Mermaid's Promise, which starts off with Yuta visiting a dead girl's grave.
One of Yuta's many lovers.
They don't outright say this, but even the way he's talking about like, this is a girl I used to know. He's being real mysterious, and it's got my favorite scene of on the first read, I wasn't sure this was what they were going for, but with how this chapter's bookend, I think this is entirely what they're going for. Mana does not even look at the grave at all. She is purposefully 90-degree turn away from it the entire time they're there, to the point where Yuta is just like, "I guess you're pretty bored visiting my ex-girlfriend's grave, aren't you?" And she's like, "Yep, I'm gonna go walk now and not be here."
It's kind of awkward for her. She's not like super honest with her feelings for Yuta at this point.
It was when I was doing the outline, I reread that first part and I'm like, that's probably what they were going for here.
Like, yep, this is awkward. I'm gonna just not be here.
I'm gonna go witness a murder. Mana, stop getting into trouble, please. This guy is attacking a woman and Mana's is like, "Well, what's going on here?" And then the guy's like, "Mind your own business," but that's enough time for the woman to kill him with a rock. And then the Yakuza come out of the car going like, "Oh, nope, get her in the car. Oh, we got a witness." Then we cut to Mana being buried because she's dead now.
It looks like they strangled her to death.
Yeah, because she was a witness. They had to. Yuta looks for Mana, runs into an old man who is a groundskeeper or he's a manager at a construction site, I think.
Mhm.
And he is the young son of the house that Yuta worked at where he met the girl he was just at the grave for. And he instantly recognizes him, and he's just like, oh yeah, no, she died like immediately after, like right after you left.
Or rather, she went missing.
Yeah, she went missing and they said she died is the reveal that's there. Yuta had assumed she died because when he came back like 2 years later, he saw the grave. The manager reveals, no, she went missing and we're not quite sure what happened. Someone, I think it might be the manager, says there's a rumor of some girl that looks like her at the mansion. And then Yuta's like, well, let's go check it out. And then the manager and him go to check it out, which is convenient because they show up at the mansion right about the time that Mana has dug herself out from the grave. And then upon being known she's immortal, is immediately washed up and given breakfast by the old man who gets named at some point. His name is Eijiro.
Eijiro,
Yeah.
He owns all the land, basically, in the town. He, like, bought him all up because he married into, like, a very rich family.
He reveals that the woman living with him is a woman by the name of Ne. Just in the short amount of time Mana is allowed to talk to her, is very aware that she likes to murder. Likes us is a strong... She feels compelled to murder because she will just space out, stop referring to people at all, and just immediately resort to murder. Because she...
What triggers this, though, is, like, the cawing of crows and birds.
Yeah.
That seems to trigger, like, a kind of defensive, like, kind of response of, like, attacking who's ever around her.
I think it's also loud noises because the dogs barking, I thought, did it in the first scene.
And the flourish of, like, birds taking off.
Yeah.
No, it's the birds because the birds were cawing as we were revealed later when she was being, like, killed. And so that triggers those memories and an instant, like, defensive or, like, murderous instinct in her.
Yeah, but essentially, after getting revealed that Mana is an immortal who ate the flesh of a mermaid, because this is something you just tell everyone when they ask, that is when Eijiro goes like, well, no, you're going to have to super kill her this time, cut her head off.
And what really makes him decide to kill Mana is that she's connected to Yuta.
Yep.
That name brings back bad memories for him.
Yep.
Very resentful of him.
Because we get a further flashback from Yuta about the fact that he was real chummy with the daughter of the household, whose name is Ne. And in the flashback, looks very similar to the woman who's still alive. And that woman was going to run away with him. The thing is, she already had a fiance.
Yeah, she was already engaged to Eijiro.
Yeah, but when Yuta walks into town, you cut all previous plans.
Well, do we know if she even was attracted to the fiance? Because it was implied that this is arranged.
It's like an arranged marriage, yeah.
I think it's a business arranged marriage kind of thing. I just like the implication that Yuta is A-class material that you immediately reconsider your life for.
All ladies are attracted to Yuta's sad boy, Ito's sad boy aura.
Yep.
You don't understand. He just wants to die.
Oh man, that speaks to my inner teenage goth. Yuta would shop at Hot Topic.
It's during this flashback that they tell the story about, like, the traveling nun who had, like, the mermaid's ashes. When sprinkled, it can make, like, trees and plants grow. Yeah. And it was revealed that Ne had some of the ashes in her storehouse, and she had sprinkled it on a field of flowers that had made them, like, a field of flowers that would never wilt even in the winter. They, like, bloom all year round. And
the flowers are blood red. That's not ominous. Okay, let's go to the Crimson Valley. Essentially, Yuta fights his way onto the compound. He witnesses Ne about to murder Mana, and calls out to her. And that's when Ne kind of snaps out and goes like, Yuta, wait, no, I was supposed to meet him at the Crimson Valley. I shouldn't murder anymore. And that is just enough time for him to get knocked out by the group of thugs, where he and the construction site manager have been brought back to the construction site they just came from, which is owned by Eijiro, who is essentially saying, like, well, I took you off my property so I can have you murdered.
Yeah, I can't bear you to be in the same place as Ne.
Yeah.
Like he's just that resentful of the power that Yuta had over Nate.
It's at this point that Yuta just goes like, well, have you not heard the... Because Yuta makes the correct assumption that you must have brought her back with mermaid ashes because something's weird with her. Did you not hear the story about the nun? And he's like, of course I know the story about the nun. And it's like, no, not whatever Nay told you. She's wrong. The actual story about the nun was she was murdered for her mermaid ashes, but when she was buried, they didn't get all of the ashes. So she came back as a vengeful zombie that killed all the people who wronged her. And he's just like, oh, well then. That's a very interesting story, but I'm gonna go hang out with the girl who totally didn't leave me for you. I'm gonna have a thug with a chainsaw fight you now. And then Yuta fights a dude with a chainsaw who is 3 times his size and then flips him out a window in the most amazing display of strength he has in this manga.
This was another cool action scene.
Like, this is Yusuke Urameshi suplexing Elder Togoro. Like, that is the level of scale here.
I appreciate that reference.
But like, yeah, so obviously Yuta's set to fight one person. He can never lose. So essentially what gets revealed in Mana and Nei run away because Nei keeps saying, I need to find the Crimson Valley to meet with Yuta. And Mana's just like, we need to get away from these people trying to kill me. And you, I guess?
It's not important.
Yeah, and that's why Eijiro had to leave to have someone else kill Yuta, by the way, is he got called that Nei had broken out. There is a real fun scene where they decide to run through a shopping mall, and they try on lipstick. I think they're trying to disguise Nei to make her look not like a horrible, like, zombie.
Nei herself is like noticing herself in the mirror and she's like taking lipstick and she's like thinking about, oh, this is so pretty. I wonder if Yuta will like it. Like her memories are coming back.
Gotcha.
And so her feelings for Yuta as well.
My favorite joke in this scene, though, is Mana, as they're running out of the shopping mall, just yells, those men over there will pay for it. Yeah. I'm like, cool, I guess that works. I didn't realize you could, like, next time I'm in line at McDonald's, I'm just going to shout, that guy over by the door is paying for it. And
you
then
can't
leave.
do that. You can't do that, Matt, because you are a male.
The patriarchy fouling me up yet again.
Double standard.
I think my argument is I don't think women can get away with this either, but...
No.
You don't think, but they do.
Maybe. We're not going to get into this. So yeah, they have a fun little chase scene where they're running towards the Crimson Valley because that's the only place Nei will go without going psycho. They run into Eijiro, who tries to go like, Nei, come on, it's me. Let's just go home where you'll be safe. Meaty gets hit with a rock because I don't know why he thought that'd work.
And also the crow's cawing is also like triggering that kind of, again, flight or flight, like defensive impulse to like kill people.
It's at this point Eijiro just goes like, oh, okay, well, I've played this charade with dolls long enough. Just kill them both. This is ridiculous. Because he has come to the conclusion, if she's willing to break out of the zombie trance for Yuta, but not him, what is he even doing? So
it's really sad it's taken him this long to realize this.
Well,
I mean, to be fair, Yuta just came into the picture, but I mean, it's like...
We'll get to it.
He just wanted the living doll of Nei to control and possess. But if she's not going to be, like, submissive to him, then she's useless to him, essentially.
Yeah. We get the whole scene where Yuta reveals that he never told Nei to meet him. He was just going to skip town and just like leave her. So she got told to meet him in the field, to which Eijiro was waiting for her and said, like, you made me do this. I'm going to have to kill you now.
And we need to go into how she was told, because even after it was explained, I'm like, this is totally arbitrary that she just went full into this.
Well, there was a signal that they had kind of a method of communication they had established that, they placed like 3 stones behind like a certain marker, and if the stone in the middle was missing, that was a signal that, like, oh, they're going to meet. And so Eijiro had figured out their method of communication, and he removed the middle stone because he wanted to believe, or he was hoping that even if Yuta was going to meet with her, she wouldn't run away with him. But unfortunately, like, his fears were proven correct. Like, Nei did feel to wait for Yuta. Eijiro's there, and then, like, kind of, like, shattered and angry that she would, in his point of view, betray him for Yuta. Like, he went berserk and killed her.
And I'm just like, Adro, my dude, if your fiance has a secret coded message for when she's gonna go on dates with her boyfriend, I think you've already lost, buddy. Like,
yeah. He had this misguided idea that she had any real feelings or loyalty to him at all.
I think at this point your best bet is, this guy is leaving town. Just wait for it to pass over. But no, he decides to follow the path of murder, where he kills her and then hides her body in the Crimson Valley, which preserves it. He comes back later and finds her body has not decayed at all. So he uses his vast wealth he has accrued through years of business to buy up all the land until he finds the place where
the mermaid's ashes were hidden by him.
And he uses it on her. And that's when Yuta goes like, well, no, the whole thing about the nun, like, you knew this was a terrible idea. Why would you do that? And there's just a really great panel because you just see Eijiro and his expression is just so matter of fact, like, well, duh, obviously. I knew she would be a mindless zombie, but I thought,
it would be the, good for me mindless zombie.
I can do what I please with her. Like,
Yeah, and like, I don't know. I strongly want to edit that panel where Yuta is just like, you knew she would just be a mindless zombie. And I just want to cut out everything and just like, but I'm kind of into that kinky shit. And I'm like, because that's that is the expression he has.
No, yeah, it's real disturbing. Like, was never really in love with Nei. He was in love with like the idea of her, of possessing her. Yeah. Really.
Yuta hugs Nei. She essentially fulfills her zombie mission of meeting Yuta at the Crimson Valley. And with that, she finds peace and dies.
Yeah. And either way, because of the legend of the nun, is that a few years later, the nun, the effect of the ashes wore off, she passed away anyway. That happens to Nei right at this moment, too.
Yep.
So it's kind of a serendipitous moment of like, her time is finally run out from like this thing that wouldn't last forever, but also she's able to have a moment of closure.
They just kind of leave town. No one actually gets punished for this, is the amazing thing. Like, Eijiro got hit with a rock, but like, yeah.
I mean, Eijiro's just gotta live with what he did. Like, I don't know how they can like go to the police and explain this whole situation.
I mean, they're not going to go to the police. They're drifters. Like, they're going to be like, well, where do you live? The
theme throughout this is like, you can't really go to the police because the police are never going to believe you.
They're useless. Yeah. And so many, it's a story, and another story later, like someone tries to ask the police for help, but they can't.
Like, what do you expect the police to actually do and what legal framework? And you like
it's just like, well, he sprinkled ashes on her and then kept her body. It's like, well, I guess part of that's illegal, maybe?
You could say it's desecration of a grave. There's just a lot of that.
Look, there's a lot of magic here that muddies that water, so... But yeah, there's also the cute scene at the end where, I forget if it's this chapter at the next one, where Yuta just goes like, hey, were you jealous or something? And she's like, no.
Yeah, it was at the end of this.
It's totally jealous.
Yeah.
But not jealous.
No, I'm not jealous that you basically just hugged that girl in front of me. What, you've known other girls and then Yuta just has to go like, I was married for like 70 years, right? No,
I know. He's like super loyal. That's why I want him.
What really ruins that like whole reality is the fact that every single village we go to, you tell me about the girlfriend you had there.
Yeah, no, a lot of tragic close in this path. But she'll be the one. She'll be the one who sticks around. Because
she's immortal. It's just a numbers game at this point. Okay, next up we have Mermaid Scar, which opens up... Yeah.
Mermaid Scar is like the one that I remembered the most out of all the stories. Oh. For a very good reason.
Mermaid Scar is the one I have the most cropped pictures of panels saved. Because we start off with Yuta and Mana riding on a train with a child who is being picked up by his mom because he's moving from Tokyo. And then we are told it is 2 years later where that same child has murdered his mother.
Just the sequence of him, like... we see that he stabbed her to death, and then he goes back to clean up the blood on the floor, and he's like taking a shower, And then he gets out and is just looking at his corpse sitting down.
Yeah, like
it's just such a great opener. It really set the tone and mood of this.
It's like the show Dexter, kind of, with like how it's someone dies, but then you get to watch them methodically clean it up and then kind of just like take a shower and go like, oh, well, that happened.
So matter-of-factly and jadedly, yeah.
Yeah, like, and then it cuts after that. Like, you have to watch this happen. And I always appreciate that. And essentially what we get brought up to speed on is that Yuta and Mana are working at a construction site, I think. They're doing odd jobs, which they're always doing. Where what happens is while they're working on the odd jobs, a character by the name of Yuki, I presume she's here to visit her boyfriend.
Yeah, she might be here to visit her fiance. I don't think they explicitly say, but
she's here for a reason.
And she's basically Masato's nanny, and Masato's like kind of pretty close to her. And we've seen earlier at this point that his mom was fine the next day, and he seemingly is afraid of her. Yuta and Mana recognize them, so they talk to him about, "Oh, are you happy now?" And he kind of
you look like a 4-year-old who hasn't aged at all in the 2 years we've been gone.
Yeah, still a squirt, aren't you?
Yep. Yuta does not have a lot of feats that put him in a very high IQ category. He's
I mean, he's perceptive, but he doesn't quite put two and together. It's strange that this kid hasn't grown any.
Look, they didn't have public school when Yuta was a kid.
It's probably been a long time that he's been around like a young kid and know how quickly they grow at a certain age.
Masako and his mother have a very tense relationship when there are not other people in the room. They are kind of fighting each other off screen a lot. Up until the point where Yuki reveals that she has gotten engaged to her boyfriend and is showing off the ring. Unfortunately, that means because she is getting married, she can no longer have a job.
Yep.
Because this is 80s Japan. She's also a nanny, which is admittedly a different scenario.
They don't really explain why she needs.
Yeah, I mean, she could maybe be part-time or something. Like, there's no reason to just like completely say I cannot work anymore.
I think to move or something. I don't know. Like, they don't really get into that.
I would think it's because her job is like being someone's like personal nanny.
Yeah,
there's more.
She can't be an au pair anymore. Obviously,
there's more of an onus that if you're going to like start a family with someone, a nanny is not a great job for that. Obviously, different situations for different people, but
seemingly she was living at the estate, the home of Masato and her mom too. So I guess. Yeah,
probably not ideal when you're getting married. So there she is essentially apologizing to Masako. Masato.
It's also worth noting at this point that they had encountered like Masato's mother like being violent towards them while asking where he's hidden the mermaid flesh. And this is where like Yuta kind of has a talk with her about like explaining the properties of the mermaid flesh, and that makes her realize, oh, I need to get more flesh because like it might not be effective forever.
Yep.
But also, like Masato like says, "Oh, you don't put my clearly abusive parent. Don't call the police on her. I don't want her to be arrested." And they just kind of accept that for now. But it kind of portrays the situation of like they think that Masato is the one in danger here, and is like the victim of the abusive relationship.
So yeah, as Yuki is apologizing to him, he's just like, okay, but if you're going to leave me forever, you need to eat this meat I was holding in my backpack. Yuki is very accepting of that, I suppose. So good on her. Because it's mermaid flesh gets just like described as like a chunk of like essentially tuna is what it always looks like. It's definitely like fishy flesh. And he just pulls it out of a jar in his backpack. And she's like, okay, well, guess I'm eating this.
Yeah, preserved well after so many years, like decades. Masato's probably had this flesh.
Yeah, like it's interesting the amount that Yuki was just willing to eat something a 4-year-old handed her, but whatever. She does, and it does not go great because she immediately hulks out into a lost soul, and Masato starts crying, "Help!" And
the lost soul Yuki slashes his mom.
Yep.
And then Mana and Yuta try to fight it.
Yep. And Yuta essentially goes like, this is going to take a while to fight. Mana, get the kid out of here, because we don't know he's immortal yet. And so Mana grabs him, runs.
When she gets him out of harm's way, she tells Masato that she's going back to help Yuta. And when Masato comments that, wait, you're hurt, she wipes off the blood and he notices that her cheek is healing. And that's when he realizes she's immortal.
And it's like, no, we got to keep running away. And then the first of the panels I saved is when he pulls a stun gun out and shocks.
Masato's so resourceful. He's got a lot of tools.
He is a 4-year-old.
He has a secret shack in the forest where he keeps all sorts of contraptions to help him out.
Jay, I'm going to warn you, don't incriminate yourself with what you were just about to say.
Okay.
Good. Well, you don't need to tell anyone about the secret shack full of murder implements.
Oh dear.
What? That wasn't what I was about to say. I was going to say this is why I have a deep mistrust of young children.
As we all should. Who knows what they're hiding?
Oh man. But yeah, essentially what comes to be is Masato has essentially decided I don't need that woman there anymore. I can just hang out with Mana because she appears to be actually immortal, where I've come to the conclusion that my current mother is not super immortal. She is still going to die soon.
Yeah, we saw that her scar that he had inflicted on her when he killed her last hasn't healed yet. And it's also commented later that it's been taking longer and longer for her to revive after each time she's died. So she seems, her immortality is actually seeming to run out. It hasn't quite taken with her as it has with him or Yuta or Mana.
Yep. And we get a flashback which reveals that Masato and his mother met in the firebombings of World War II. Originally, he's from Tokyo, so you can probably assume it was during those firebombings. He is a young 4-year-old who came out of the wreckage to a woman, or her husband and sons, I believe, had been drafted and died in the war.
Her husband had died in the war, but and then her son, who was only 8 years old, died in the bombing.
Yep.
So that's why she initially kind of is amenable to having a surrogate son in Masato, because he's around the same age.
Yep. He fed her some mermaid flesh. She didn't turn into a horrible monster. And they lived together for about 50 years before she kind of came to the conclusion, it sure is weird, neither of us have aged. And she eventually came to, he is 4 years old. We have to move literally every 2 to 3 years. This is not maintainable.
Yeah.
I know.
Worst immortals are the young ones.
Mm-hmm. What started as a happy relationship between them slowly became twisted and abusive. She apparently has tried to kill him many times before, but he always comes back. And she always tries to escape from him. And her last attempt was the context for the opening scene of the chapter. She had ran away from him and got married, but then the yacht accident happened and he found out about her and came back to her. Which
really puts into perspective when the full color page, when they pull into the train station. He's like, oh, there's my mommy. And the woman you see looks very dour. And you're like, oh, yep, that's why. Masato has stun-gunned Mana, and she wakes up. He has wrapped her in barbed wire because he's just like, you're immortal. You could probably gnaw through anything else, but the barbed wire is going to hurt you just to move in, so that will probably keep you here long enough. I'm going to go back to the house, and you're clearly not going to be okay with being my mom if Yuta's still alive, so I'm going to go be home alone at my mansion and set up a whole bunch of deadly traps, and that's essentially what we get is Yuta bust into the mansion to see the kid, and he runs off, and it's just a whole bunch of booby traps.
It's so great. He shoots marbles at him, and then he puts marbles on the floor so he would trip, and then he's strung up a bunch of wire in the room for him so that he gets decapitated.
And you're like, oh man, what a bunch of cute kitty pranks up to oh man, it's getting a little homicidal. And
then he pulls out a gun.
I got this in the war. And I'm like, what? So I saved this panel.
So I love it. I love just those bag of tricks and how hardcore it is.
And then he just keeps shooting him, and he reveals because Yuta does his line of like, I've been alive for 500 years, and then Masato just goes, you little punk, I've been alive for 800. And then Yuta's like, oh my god. And then Yuta then goes, oh my god, how many women have you poisoned? Masato, because we got a flashback earlier on where Masato's just like, mommy, eat this, and then she turns into a monster. But then we get another flashback, kind of admits that previous flashback he had, he's like, I don't even think that was my first mom.
Well, it's been so long at this point that he can't even remember clearly. Clearly, like, he's having kind of these traumatic flashbacks, like earlier, that he's remembering the moment where he fed the flesh to his mother and she became lost, someone attacked him. But, like, it's also been long enough that his memories aren't clearly. He's lived such a long life and has done this to so many different women that he can't even say for sure anymore. But regardless, the reason why he keeps looking for surrogate mothers is kind of to replace his original one that he lost so long ago. And he's just been trying to recapture having a parent for so long.
It's also just impossible for him to live without one, is the thing. Like,
because of how young he is, he can't live on his own, except for being a vagabond.
Yeah.
And he mentions that, like, he would often, like, be taken in, but everyone who would take him would die for one reason or another. And so that's when he got the idea to use mermaid flesh to create another immortal like him who could live forever with him.
So anyway, the fight culminates with him about to chop off Yuta's head with an axe. And because Yuta's in danger, Mana breaks through the window. There's a great scene where she rolls out of the thing onto the highway, still wrapped in barbed wire, and two guys on a motorcycle just pull over and she's like, quick, cut me out. And then she just shows up later. I'm like, so I guess they had no problem with that.
Yeah, no, and she I love how she just like breaks into the window, just with full body, not caring about the glass at all, to just get to Yuta. It's so great. Just crashes in.
Essentially, he sees that Mana is willing to sacrifice herself for Yuta and just kind of comes to the conclusion, she's not gonna agree to be my mom. This kind of a lost cause. I'm just gonna stick with the one I still have. He goes to wake up his mother. She does not wake up because she is dead forever. To which he goes like, well, I'm done with all of this. Lights the house on fire. And you would think, like every other person who lights a house on fire, he's planning to go up in the smoke. Nope, he is safe on the other side. Holds up his bags. It's like, I've still got a ton of mermaid flesh. And steals a car.
That is like, that's where my screenshot came from. That was just so unsettling.
He's so angry. Such intimidating energy, like the scene of him driving the car, not able to see over the steering wheel.
I mean, he could have a booster seat, put some books down there.
Yeah.
Then he can't reach the pedals.
It's clear, though, he does have, like, some cushion under him that is, like, lifting it up. But, yeah. Oh.
Anyway, a 4-year-old driving a car goes about as well as you thought it would.
Mm-hmm. He crashes into a truck.
Yeah, headfirst into a truck. It is left ambiguous what's going on because Yuta and Mana essentially go like, well, we're going to have to find him. And then the crash happens. And then we get reports from like people talking like, oh, the house burned down. They found the mom and the kid must have been playing with the car, which implies they found his body in the car.
But it doesn't mean that he's dead, because if he's not decapitated, which I know that does happen in accidents, but it's not clarified, he could have easily been transported to a morgue and then...
Yeah. It's ambiguous when Masato's fate actually is, which I like. You could read it either way, that he did die in the crash or that he's still out there and he's going to do this again. And that's what I also like about the scene of him crashing into the truck. Is like he's really rolling the dice, because we've also kind of gotten the sense that he's a little bit nihilistic at this point. He's like, well, either I live or either I die. At this point, like, I'm willing to take either. But if I do live, I'm going to begin again and continue to search for another mother to live with me forever, basically.
Yeah, that's the end of the chapter. I have shipping nonsense, but I think I might have been misremembering what chapter that was.
No, there is some like stuff at the end where it's basically Yuta and Mana are talking about like, Mana was super worried about Yuta during this, and she was so happy when she found that he's still alive.
Gotcha.
And like he was crying like tears of relief, and that was the first for her and stuff like that. Which is kind of a cool moment of growth in terms of like how strongly she feels about him. I guess another note I just want to make about Misato that we kind of plumbed over is that he did genuinely have some care for Misa, the woman who's like his mother, because he was like wiping tears off his face when he came to the realization that she really was dead.
Yeah, and that kind of counteract a point he had made earlier when Yuta confronted him of like, why did you just kill Yuki like that? Like, how could you care so little about someone? And Misato just goes, you can't let yourself get attached when you live forever. The heartbreak would be unending. And then when he gets choked up about his mom dying, it's like, well, clearly that's not true for you. You're just saying that.
Yeah, despite his best efforts to be detached, he still, did care. Like, he still was fond of her in some way, even if their relationship had become twisted in the last couple of years.
Next story up, The Ash Princess, which is another Yuta backstory episode. This takes place somewhere in between the modern era and the backstory with Rin.
Yeah, it also takes place about 300 years ago, around the same era as the Rin story.
And essentially what is going on in this one is there is a young girl named, very young, probably 8, I want to say. I think they say her age at some point, but I can't remember.
12.
Oh, wow, I was way off. So her name is Natsume, and she is essentially running a scam with her father. They have a sideshow where they have a mermaid that they show like in a tank splashing around, and then from that they say, well, if you eat a mermaid's flesh you'll live forever, and they sell little parcels of it, which is revealed later to be carp, because they don't have a real mermaid, but they managed to pull this trick off because Natsume can cut herself and the cut instantly heals. Natsume is getting attacked by a monk who is trying to kill her because she is a vile demon creature, and Yuta's just like, hey, no, don't kill a child. What's going on here? And then the monk's like, vile creature. And then Natsume gets away.
I mean, he sees him cut her arm clear off.
And well, also, I think Yuta had seen the sideshow and knew she had some like kind of healing.
And no, Yuta hadn't seen the sideshow yet. He just heard about it from someone else. The monk had seen the sideshow and recognized that girl was the same one that he had revived with the technique of so many years ago.
Because he saved Natsume, she invites him over to dinner at their house to spend the night because he is still a drifter. So he is like, hey, cool, food and a warm bed to sleep. Great. And heads over where Natsume's father welcomes him, and they show him the mermaid that is just like a monkey and a fish. Well, it's a monkey mermaid, kind of.
Yeah. It's another great panel. Just a screeching face, monkey splashing around.
And the father comes clean about it is not a real mermaid, and you appear to be immortal because you've eaten the flesh of a mermaid. That's not what Natsume did. She didn't do that. And Yuta's just like, okay, I believe you at face value with no further questions. I'm going to go to bed now. And then in the middle of the night, Natsume tries to eat Yuta's liver. And at that point, the father's just like, okay, well, I'm going to have to kick you out now.
And Yuta's reaction is like, oh, man, that girl can really bite.
Yuta's really accepting of, hey, this girl's immortal. Oh, did she eat the flesh of a mermaid? No. Okay, well, that's enough information for me. Oh, man, she tried to eat my liver? That's weird. Well, guess I'm sleeping outside. He eventually runs into the monk again, and the monk says, like, hey, you know that girl's not right. Like, I know that she's not right because I'm the one who revived her. She was dead, and I used her bones and a mermaid liver to bring her back to life. But it's clear she's been eating, like, livers out of cats and dogs and things. Also, she hasn't aged in the 25 years since I did that. What's going on there? And Yuta's just like, you're right, that is weird. And then the monk's just like, so I'm going to pray for 7 days so I'm filled with holy power, and then I'm going to murder her. And Yuta's just like, okay. Well, I'm going to go not tell them that. Because Yuta is not on board with whatever this monk is doing, because...
Yeah, the monk believes she's an evil spirit, but Yuta isn't so sure that she's...
Yeah. Yuta is strongly of the opinion, like, it sure is weird that she's eating livers out of, like, living things, but, like, people eat fish to be alive, too, so it's not that evil. Like, Yuta's very accepting of it, considering he almost had his liver eaten. But it is then revealed that Natsume's father watched the monk do this ritual that can revive dead things, and, like, after seeing it, is performing it on other things. Like, the mermaid they have is a fish skeleton and monkey skeleton, and he also offers to do this for other people for money, presumably, because the chapter opens with a young boy dissolving into bones, which is what happens when you don't use a mermaid liver. And essentially...
Forever.
Mermaid livers are forever. But what happens is Yuta essentially spends the 7 days, like, working, like, generally around the family, but, like, hanging out with them, because Natsume's father has taken on a job from the local royals. There is a princess that has died, and he's like, yeah, I can bring her back to life. Cool. I just need a certain amount of time. And he's like, yeah, we'll spend 7 days preparing the body so she is perfect and will last as long as possible so the royals will be happy. Essentially, what Yuta goes is like, man, Natsume doesn't really have 7 days. She has exactly 7 days before the monk comes to kill her. You know, I'm going to talk to her about what she feels about life and how the fact that she's going to outlive her father shortly. And he kind of, like, comes to the conclusion that he had the inkling of it, but talking to her, he's like, you're right, she's not evil. She really should live her own life, though. So he's like, hey, how about you run away with me tonight? Because he doesn't tell her this, but, like, tomorrow the monk is going to kill you. But, like, you run away with me tonight. We can be immortal together. We'll figure something out. To which she seems amenable to, but not completely.
She's happy about it. She wants to go. It's like she smiles and she's excited to go on, because she wants to go live her own life separate from her father, and she's thinking about, like, her own future. So she wants to really...
The conversation, the main thing she gets from it is she is aware her father is going to die soon, and, like, she's not ready to deal with that. Like, she's like, I no, he needs to stop taking care of me. Essentially what happens is the dad overheard that, tricks Yuta into showing up at a different location, where he then ties Yuta to a tree and just goes, hey, I'm going to cut your liver out and use it to rev that princess. And since your liver is immortal, I mean, hopefully that makes her, like, really immortal rather than all those, like, fake jobs I've been doing. Natsume, at this point, waiting for Yuta, gets attacked by the monk, who, with his divine power fully healed by, like, 7 days of prayer, shoots his hand out and grabs her liver out of her body and rips it out. But she cuts his hand off and then runs away. And she makes it to the ritual point, sees what's happening, disrupts the bones, so the princess is like, can't be revived anymore. And essentially tells her dad that living forever sucks. I don't want to do it, and I am sure she wouldn't want it either. And the dad, like, immediately sees the wound where her liver is, and it's like, oh no, you're gonna die soon. And he's just like, well, okay, that's fine. We'll go out as a family. Grabs her, throws himself off a cliff with her, and is like, we're gonna die together. Hits the ground, he dies instantly. And then a great scene of Yuta coming down, and the daughter is like, yeah, no, I'm still immortal, so he's dead. Now I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, cool.
No, she felt sorry for her boss, so she kind of let him commit his, like, double suicide, you know, to make him feel at peace. But, I mean, she's not going to leave without her liver.
Yeah, and she fades away almost immediately. And then the monk comes in and is like, well, I'm going to perform the last rites. And Yuta's just like, no, go away. You have just made everything awful.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Because this girl wanted to keep living. She was decided to live. That's why she was excited about Yuta's offer, because they're the same. They're both, like, immortal beings. So she was afraid of being like alone after her dad passed away, and so that's why she was happy that Yuta invited her on, because Yuta was someone that she could have spent her life with as a companion. But
Yeah.
the tragedy is like the monks just saw her as an evil creature. The dad was just possessed of her and wasn't ready to like let her live her own life, and in the end, like she ends up passing away. So. Yeah, another bittersweet ending.
The next saga we have is The Mermaid's Gaze. This is an interesting one to summarize because so much of this chapter is like the mystery of what's happening, to which the majority of the characters involved are completely aware of what's happening in one point or another. So from a reader, you're constantly kept in the dark, and it's very interesting to read through, but like going back to summarize it's kind of like they didn't know this yet, but then what is the best way to do this? Like, essentially, there is an old house that Yuta used to work at that, since he no longer works there, has been known for having a creepy doll in the attic that looks out. People say the house is haunted, mostly because there's this dude who keeps showing up and harassing the old lady that lives there until she murders him. And then it turns out he's immortal, so he's just comes back the next day. And she has called the police about this several times, and they're like, look, we can't report a murder. You're admitting to a murder with no body. What are we supposed to do here?
Yeah, especially when the person he murders comes back right in front of the police and says, nope, I'm still alive.
So I guess the runabout of this is that it is revealed that Yuta used to work as like a stable hand for this rich family, of which the eldest daughter, Tsukiko, and the eldest son, Shingo, were very close because Shingo was essentially the poster child for a serial killer as a child. He was happy torturing small animals as a child until the point that his sister grabbed a knife away from him so forcefully she accidentally cut his eye out. And from that, she felt guilty and would constantly apologize for his bad behavior, up until the point where
he poisoned her fiance and killed him,
to which she kind of feels guilty for. And their family, being rich, have a secret supply of mermaid flesh, as is wont to do, as right next to their family dungeon. I think they technically don't have a family dungeon. They built one later.
They built one in the basement, yeah.
Essentially what happens is she feeds them both mermaid flesh, because at this point her family just knows that's a powerful poison, because no one survives it. Unfortunately, she just dies peacefully and nothing happens to him. He's immortal. So cut back to the present day. He has come back to harass the family that now lives there, is the woman who owns the house and a servant girl who moved back into the house for some reason.
Tsukiko was like kind of the woman who's like most afraid of Shingo. She was the one who let him out when she was a servant when she was a kid. And then her sister, like, also has moved in with her now, and she doesn't really know the full context of what is going on.
Yeah,
because she didn't work there during the period where, like, all this stuff with Shingo, Stat, and then being locked up happened.
Shingo got locked away when his sister poisoned herself because she was no longer there to protect him. And
yeah, so his father locked him away.
I assume if you're a father in a traditional Japanese household, if you hate a child, you just lock them in the family dungeon.
Yeah.
Because this has now happened 3 times. He has been locked in there until he gets let out. He runs around and they both die immediately from the poison and are buried.
Yep.
He digs himself out from the grave and the father beats him, going like, the wrong child survived. At some point, he steals his sister's eye.
Yeah, so after he like escaped, was let out, escapes and like attacked like Tsukiko, he found like the doll that what was made of his sister's corpse, and then like he steals her eye at that point.
Well, it was never a doll. It was her body was again preserved by the mermaid poison.
Yeah.
No, it's like her corpse,
which again is a thing the characters aren't aware of, but also kind of are. It's a mystery that for the reader is very impactful. It's looking back to summarize. It's kind of a few hurdles to jump through.
Yeah.
But the main thing is Shingo has always been, like, frankly, a piece of shit. And what he loves doing is murdering women that look like his sister and then coming back to the house to brag about it to the old women. Unfortunately, what happens when he's just about to murder, the eye he stole from his sister flashes to the picture of him ripping out her eye from her corpse.
No, when he strangled her when she died.
Oh, I thought it was when he was taking the eye out, but okay. It's of him killing her then. And he's just like, oh, what an awful thing to constantly be reminded of. That just totally kills the mood when I'm murdering. That is his motivation, is like, dude, I really wish I could murder, but I keep getting this weird sister guilt. If that could just go away, I could keep murdering. And I'm like, ooh, he is not redeemable at all.
No.
He comes to the conclusion that he recognizes Yuta from when he was there, and he's just like, oh, he must be immortal. And then, oh, the doll must be there. And Yuta and him have like a really elaborate fight where he starts off with a gun and then pulls out a pump action shotgun. And there is so much gunfire. The neighbors next door go like, hey, should we call the police? And then the mom's just like, the police never do anything. They must be listening to the TV too loud. And I'm like, lady, there's a lot of gunfire coming from this house.
The idea is though that they've heard, like, this is the neighborhood where they've heard everything, and previously like they've called the cops like 100 times and nothing ever came from it.
Yeah. So that's why they're ignoring it. So like saying, it's probably nothing. This kind of stuff happens in this house all the time.
It's a funny panel in modern context, though.
Shingo pulling out a shotgun just from, I guess, his cloak is really funny because it's so big. How is he hiding it and carrying it all the time?
If your goal is to just murder everyone, start with the shotgun. He starts off with a pistol, So they bring him down to the doll that's not in the basement. It's in the super basement that they built during World War II as a bomb shelter. Upon finding the doll, he goes like, yes, I'm haunted by her memory. He gets revealed as what he's saying, like, I'm seeing through her eyes. I don't think she died when she ate the mermaid poison. I think she's just been stuck in that body. And that is enough for Yuta to go like, well, okay, if she's just been stuck, not able to move, we should put her out of her misery. So they come down, they have a big old samurai sword. Shingo's going to do it. And Yuta's just like, no, I'm not giving you the satisfaction. She deserves better than that. Grabs it, cuts off the doll's head, and then goes, and then Shingo's just like, well, cool. I am now guilt-free. I'm going to go back to murdering. And then Yuta's just like, no, I'm not letting you leave. I don't know why you thought that was going to happen. I'm going to kill you now. And he definitely tries.
But he still sees the vision of him. And you were right. It was him reaching out to steal his sister's eye.
Yeah, because Shingo then is strangling Yuta because he's just stronger than Yuta, which is an amazing feat. And while he's killing him, the vision flashes back and he's just like, oh no, it's not gonna ever go away, is it? Well, if I'm constantly gonna have sister guilt when I'm murdering, I guess there's no point in living at all. And then he just puts the blade to the back of his neck. He's like, do it. And I'm just like, Shingo, you could also just stop murdering.
No, it's too hard.
Well, he's reconciled with like the ugliness of himself.
Yeah.
The thing that he's trying to ignore and saying, oh no, this is just like my sister cursing me. No, now he has to reconcile with the fact that no, this is kind of my own guilt and awareness of what I am.
Human emotions. Right. I'm trying to be a psychopath.
I don't want to live with this. You win, sister. You've got us to me. There's also the ambiguity of like whether the doll that they just get up really is the corpse, because it's very bloodless, the decapitation. But not only that, the eye that falls off and shatters is not the same eye that Shingo stole. What should have probably have been the still flesh eye is revealed to be a glass eye. So either both of the eyes were replaced as glass eyes, or that this body of her sister was always a doll. And that's kind of the theory Mana has at the end too.
Yeah, like
that Shingo is just kind of cursed with his own guilt.
That Jingo might just straight up have a glass eye in. is the other thing. Like,
that's the ambiguity. It could be that the eyes were both replaced with glasses, or like it was never her body to begin with. It was just.
Well, I mean, the one thing that would dispel that is that he claims to be able to look out of the other eye as if it was like living tissue.
Right. I think, the original that he got the eye from was her, but like now this doll, is it still the corpse of the sister, or is it just a doll?
Or did they bury the doll after? Like, yeah, it's interesting.
And has he always really been able to see out, or is he just seeing this vision?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's just like a psychological mental thing.
Yeah. Then we hit the final saga we read, which is Mermaid's Mask, which really drove home the point that they just love titling these mermaids something, because the last three have been hard to differentiate based on name alone. But
there's definitely an English localization thing.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Then I've got some problems with this start because it starts off with a kid murdering his mom.
Again.
And then it jump cuts. Yeah, that's another thing is first time I was reading this until they said the kid's name, I thought Masato was back.
Yeah.
But,
no, the kid looks very similar to Masato. Like, not exactly similar, but you could be confused if they were the same.
But yeah, so a murder happens, and then we jump cut to a kid being kidnapped by a dude. You would think those are sequentially tied to each other, but you would be wrong. It's because it gets revealed later that is not the same kid, but I don't know. It's a decent enough flashback. It's just a bit of a.
The chronology is meant to mislead you.
Yeah. It is purposefully misleading.
Mm-hmm.
But so essentially there is a kid by the name of Nanao. He has been kidnapped, it's found out, by a man. He jumps out of the window of a moving car, rolls on the ground out of a moving car, which is amazing, survives with a lot of like scraped legs and everything, and winds up on the side of a river where Yuta and Mana found out the plot's happening. So they run into him. And seeing this injured child, they're like, oh, wow, what's going on here? And he's like, hold on, I got to take my medicine. He eats something, and then his wounds immediately heal. And they're like, hold on, that's magic. And he is returned home to his family. His mom is there, and Grandma is not happy to see he is back, where she talks to Yuta and goes, he was supposed to leave. He is not safe here.
And so they suspect that because his wounds are healing so quickly that he might be one of them. They don't know for sure, but it's just something's going on.
And then we get a scene of the mom opening the box the boy had run away with. And it is an urn full of ashes. But more importantly, there is also a human face in it.
Yeah, but a scar.
We cut to Yuta and Mana have gotten odd jobs at the fishery, which just seems to be their normal thing, is either a construction site or a fishery. Yuta notices the guy that was in the car?
Yeah, the guy that had seemingly tried to kidnap them now before. He approaches them again.
How does Yuta recognize the kidnapper? Did he ever see him before? Because I know he recognizes
Yuta doesn't recognize him.
Oh.
Now says that's the guy who kidnapped me. And Yuta says, okay, I'm going to talk to him.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense. So he heads off to follow him. Meanwhile, Nanao and Mana hang out where they start cleaning up the storage area in the house, and Yuta follows the guy who has decided to meet. He calls up some woman, and they meet on a hill where it is the same. Nanao's mother walks into the storage unit, and this woman walks out. She has a completely different face.
Mm-hmm.
Which we also reveal is the same face as, in a very weird scene, the grandma shows both of them what Nanao and the mom look like. And it's a picture of them, but they don't look quite the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's odd, but what we eventually come to is the kidnapper meets with the woman on the bridge, on the cliff, and goes, Mom, what's going on here? And everyone watching, Yuta included, is like, that woman is younger than him. what is going on here? And essentially, he goes, I want my son back. His mom goes, nope, and pushes him off the cliff.
Talk about mother's love.
Yeah, no.
She acknowledges that is her son.
Yep.
But no.
No, I have a new son, younger and better.
That is my grandson.
Yeah.
But yes.
Which is essentially what Yuta goes like, hold on, what did you just do? And she's like, oh, there was a witness, time to stab. And as she's stabbing him, the bandage comes off and her face is scarred, which is at this point, it's revealed that's the same as the human face that was in the urn. He is obviously immortal, so he wakes up without problem and climbs down the cliff to find the man who reveals himself to be, my name is also Nanao. That was my mother. Me and her ate mermaid flesh. Nothing really happened to me other than this scar on my shoulder. She got a scar on her face, but now she hasn't aged for 25 years. She came back into my life 8 years ago and stole my son. I was very sad about that and have been trying to find them ever since.
I mean, without the mermaid flesh, this just sounds like a fact of like overbearing grandparents.
No.
What the
You
weird
never let me see my grandchild.
Grandparents stealing your kid. It's like, yeah.
And like the weird thing is, the only way he even finds out about this is his mom goes back to live with her mom, which is his grandmother. The grandmother immediately calls him. Why would she go back to her mother's house?
I think she's trying to recapture, I guess, that loss.
Yeah, but it's just kind of silly because they keep it in the family. It's like,
yeah.
So you went to grandmom's house, you stole your grandchild because you're trying to relive like the whole mother-son dynamic. You screwed your own biological son.
I mean, the answer is she's clearly not right. And she's motivated by like nostalgia.
She clearly hid successfully for 6 years, though, is the big thing.
Yeah.
And then decided recently to move back in with Grandma, who immediately called her grandson, which, good on her. Grandma has done nothing wrong.
Well, yeah, literally, she's like, why is my daughter unaged, and why is she stole my great-grandchild? What is going on?
While that's going on, Mana has been searching around the storehouse, where, because the scarred woman's out, she finds Nanao, the child Nanao's mother's face in a box, and just goes, hold on, that's the woman I just talked to, who's his mother. Oh, no. And at that point, Nanao's mother walks in, sees that she has seen this, and go, well, you can't live, and attacks her. And then she cuts off her own face to put back on the other one because Mana has escaped. And
yeah, Mana escapes with Nanao, and she tries to get the face that Nanao recognizes as his mother's face so that she can, kind of trick him into going with him and her and like eating the mermaid flesh. Because Nanao at this point doesn't know that the woman that had just attacked him and Mana was like his mother because the face was different.
And we get a flashback establishing that the reason why Nanao and the older Nanao and his mom ate the mermaid flesh was because Nanao's father was going to take the child away. And the mom decided, I know I'd rather die than lose my son, so she poisoned both of them, leading me to believe there was a very good reason the father was going to gain custody of the child, but
not the most stable person.
Yeah.
Clearly.
When she finds out that she survived, he didn't. So because both of them survived the poison, so she still had her son taken away because nothing changed.
Yeah, if anything, the case for the child to be in the father's custody only grew. Yep.
And essentially what she did was she watched her son live from the shadows until he had a son that was roughly the same age he was when...
It's even more bizarre. That's even more bizarre because it's not so much I'm longing for my child. You got to see your child grow up. You knew he was happy and healthy.
Right. Well, she couldn't be a part of his life. She had to watch him from a distance. And when she saw that like he had a child of his own and it looked very similar like him, that's what triggered this idea of her to like steal him and like raise him as like if she, the Nanao that she never could raise herself.
And it's at this point that it's fully revealed that the deal with the younger Nanao taking his medicine is that she has been slowly grinding up smaller and smaller bits of the mermaid ash into a powder that he has been feeding, with the theory that that will build his tolerance so that when he finally eats the mermaid flesh, he will gain immortality and not just die, because she is very aware of the fact that the majority of people who eat the flesh die.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is great because a lot of people are not, as we previously touched upon. It's not 100%.
You know, for a woman who is going to have her son removed from her custody for some reason, Nanao's mom knows a lot about mermaids.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But essentially what gets in is there is a huge fight. It eventually comes down to the mother taking the younger Nanao up and saying, like, nope, come on, we don't have a lot of time. You've got to eat this. And he's just like, I'll do whatever you say, Mom. And at that point, she is revealed that her scar has come back onto her new face.
Mhm.
And she kind of gets hit with like a wave of realization of like, wait, no, oh no, there's no fix. I'm going to be in pain because the scars are painful, it's revealed. And like,
Mhm.
this is never going away. I am constantly going to be in pain. This is an existence of suffering that I am going to put my son through. And she kind
Yeah.
of freezes with that realization as her.
Yeah, it's like symbolic. The scar, like more, well, just being physically painful was also kind of symbolic of like kind of the guilt of her trying to poison her son and stuff like that. So she'll always have to live with a reminder of like what she's done in her life.
And like, it's at that point, Mana runs into the scene, swats his hand down. It's like, do not eat that. No, stop. That's bad. That's when Yuta kind of comes in. She's like, or does Mana say this? I think it's Yuta.
Says you should have been the one to stop him, and then
Yeah.
she admits that she was just too weak to bring herself to do that.
Yep. And then she just goes, I know I've kidnapped a child for many years and probably done a lot of other stuff. I'm just going to go exist somewhere else and you'll never see me again. And everyone involved is like, cool. That's probably for the best. And then we get some exposition that Nanao's father is going to raise him now.
Yeah.
Even though his son does not know who he is, which is going to take some adjusting. Grandma could probably do a lot of vouching, but...
Yeah, another tragic event of it. Like now he has to kind of like reacclimate to like his father and like his real mother. And it's a tragedy is also that he did genuinely care about his grandmother as his actual mother, which is why he was willing to eat the flesh. So that's another sad thing. And also there's the implication that Nanao's mother committed suicide shortly after she left everyone. Because there's this comment about it being a mysterious fire and they found like a woman's body.
For the end of the saga.
Nanao asks Yuta and Mana, like, will he see them again? And like Yuta also comes before this, it's cool. Like, because Nanao's saying, I'm seeming to grow an inch taller. And Yuta's coming, oh, great, it's growing. That's a sign that you're aging, implication like that. But yeah, but the series ends with Nanao like asking, hey, will I see you guys again? And then they say, hey, maybe when you're growing up and we might not recognize you, but you'll recognize us because, we're immortal and we'll stay the same age and in appearance.
I also thought that was a really good like ending thing to say for the end of the anthology.
Yeah.
Hey, we might show up again in the future. You'll recognize us because we're not the same.
It's a good open-ending note because technically Mermaid Saga never really ended. It just stopped. Like Takahashi, like again, she was doing these stories like a yearly or every other year for a period of 10 years, but then like she just kind of ended up not following up on the series since then. But then she has commented before that like she never really considered the series to be over, and she's open to returning with it. So the ambiguity here is also kind of a nice note of like you might see these guys again. Yeah. You might grow up and it might be a long time, but there's always possibility that another Mermaid Saga story could pop up. There's also a nice like kind of meta note I appreciate.
And with that, our reading came to a close as we've actually read all of Mermaid Saga. So good on us.
Yeah.
But as we always like to do at the end of the episode, we got some discussion topics. And Lum, you're our guest, so let's start with you. Who was your favorite character in Mermaid Saga?
Rereading it, I really do appreciate Mana's character and like her growth in the story. Like, she starts off having been kind of coddled and kind of living a sheltered life to be a bit of tile. She kind of mistreats the nanny and the other people. And honestly, like they are kind of keeping her captive. But like it's clear that she kind of has like a more selfish streak to her early on in the story. But then like as she grows closer to Yuta, she generally achieves something that she long yearned for in like someone who is a companion who would treat her like an equal, and she also will go out of the way to put her life on the line and put herself at risk in the same way Yuta will for her, and not just for Yuta. She'll do that for other people she cares about, like Big Eyes, like Nanao and other characters in harm's way.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that heroic streak. I like that she's a really proactive protagonist too. Like even if she was like in her like in the Mermaid Scar story where she's like bound up by the barbed wire, like she like wiggles herself out even though it's like cutting her up. Mm-hmm. And again, like she breaks through the glass like with her own body to get to Yuta, and like yells at Masato saying like, "Yo, you hurt Yuta. I'll come after you no matter how years it takes. I will hunt you down." Like she has a lot of cool moments like that. So I appreciate her character a lot. And
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Jay, who was your favorite character?
Hands down, I would have to say it was Yuta. And it's just because he's just such a general character who generally wants to see the best in humanity. Well, it's just a good, I guess, immortal human himself.
Look, Yuta is S-grade boyfriend material. We've gone over that. Like,
especially if you love them sadly.
Yeah.
We're all angsty about their own existences.
Oh, did you have anything else to say about that, Jay?
Oh, what in particular? About how Yuta is just great? Or
no, if that's your full sentence, I can just do mine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He speaks for himself.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh man, Yuta's a strong pick. Just to be a little different, I'm gonna go with Toa from Mermaid Forest, just because she really owns being the villain of that saga. And like the lack of karmic justice at the end, I really love. Like I love someone working so hard for like ill ends and then not getting what they want just at the end. Like when it hurts the most for them. Like and the fact that we have the doctor come in and just like, I gave her the opportunity to leave multiple times, just erases like any of the like, oh no, she was a victim of her circumstance. No, she chose to be there out of like this desperate want for revenge and did not even get that at the end. And like, I just really appreciated that in a villain. So yeah, out of all the villains, she would be my favorite. Yuta, obviously best character, but that goes without saying. For the fun, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Masato, just because I currently have the most screen caps of him.
Masato's great, yeah. I mean, just to answer the next question, Mermaid's Scar, like that has always been the most memorable story to me, and a lot of that is because of Masato as a character, and just how like kind of eerie and chilling he is, but also like just how insanely hardcore he is with all his like little tricks in the fight with him and Yuta, and the fact that he's the person who really comes closest to killing Yuta for good in terms of like chopping his head off. So he's definitely like a really great antagonist, and really
cool. Jay, what was your favorite story from this anthology?
I would say the Village of the Fighting Fish. I would have liked to see how that played out. And honestly, the modern day ones were interesting, but it was just more, I guess I just like threw back Yuta and his trials and tribulations, back when the whole mermaid, I want to say lore was in full throttle.
Yeah, like I liked Yuta better also when he was playing the field and not tied down by mana. You're right.
I don't think he was still tied down by mana. I mean...
You're right, he's not, but...
I mean, he's just full on. He married once, he made a commitment, saw that commitment out through the end, and now he realized, I never want to go through that again.
Well, not 100% on that, but he does keep bailing. And then for me, I know we kind of skimmed over it, but I think I actually liked Mermaid's Gaze the most. It had like the most like of a thriller kind of feel.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's really hard to summarize, but like while reading, it was the most enjoyable for me because you're constantly like, oh, this person knew more than they were letting on, and this person, oh no, and then it kept stacking up. Shingo definitely falls off the rails a little near the end, and I do mock him a little, but at that point while reading, I had already like been on board long enough that the ham at the end just made everything more fun. So Mermaid's Gaze I think would be my favorite. But with that, that brings us to the end of the episode. Once again, Lum, thanks for coming on. You were really fun to have on, and we talked about a lot of stuff. You want to remind everyone if they want to hear more from you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun to chat the series with you guys. And I'm sorry. Once again, the Manga Mavericks curse was in full effect. I think this did balloon. But if you are interested in hearing more of me talk on podcasts, I do host a few, including Manga Mavericks, a show where we talk about manga as a medium industry and do a lot of cool series retrospectives, quite lengthy and in-depth in a similar vein. And you can follow that on Twitter at @Manga Mavericks, and we're on every kind of podcast platform you can think of. Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, and that. And the same is true of my, if you want more discussions of Rumiko Takahashi manga in particular, you can check out my podcast, Lum Squad, which is about Rumiko Takahashi's like first series and my favorite series, Urusei Yatsura. And we cover like the Viz's current releases of the manga, and we're covering like the movies now that they're available on Crunchyroll and on Blu-ray. So we're having a lot of fun doing that. You can follow that on Twitter at Lum_Squad. And on every podcast platform you can think of, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and whatnot. And and beyond my podcast, if you like the art I make for my podcast and art and illustrations I make in general, you can follow my Instagram at SidArtWorks.
Cool.
And, you can also read my reviews on MangaMavericks.com. We recently rebranded from All Comic to Manga Mavericks. So actually, after rereading Mermaid Saga, I am inspired to write a review of it. So hopefully that'll be up by the time you're listening to this. So yeah, you can check out some of my reviews on there as well. Yeah,
I'll be sure to link that in the podcast description below. Yep. And as always, if you want to hear more from us, you can follow us at OverMangaCast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's a very easy name to get on a lot of things. YouTube, we're also OverMangaCast there. If you like commenting on individual episodes, the YouTube episodes go up about 2 weeks after, and they're really good for individual ones. As always, if you want to leave a review on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice, we always appreciate those. And if you have any suggestions for series you'd like us to read in the future, just go ahead, reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, yell at us for opinions, whatever you want. We're really receptive to most things. But anyway, we've got another week lined up. Unfortunately, no Sam and Jacob next week. I'm sure they'll have some other wacky adventure they're going on. But we will be reading Blue Giant, Volumes 1 and 2, and we might just have another guest on. We'll see. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and good night.
Good night.
Sayonara.
Hey, you. No. Don't look over here. Keep your eyes on the road. Got something for you. Take a listen to this.
In the newest Pokemon, they have Score Bunny, which is a starter.
What?
Yes.
Score Bunny?
So it's a fire bunny that plays soccer. He kicks balls.
He scores. Great.
Score, like Scorch, I think. Yeah. Oh, I get it. Like goal. Like Score Bunny.
Rad.
There's Score Bunny, who uses his mad soccer skills to steal, I think, like donuts or something like that.
How does he use his soccer skills to steal donuts?
He kicks it.
Oh, yummy.
The best part is, though, Score Bunny wants to go and follow Ash and go on big adventures. But
oh my
Ash
god,
is like,
Ash is still the main character of the anime?
Yes, where have you been? Yeah, so Ash is like, I'm getting on the train, I'm leaving, Score Bunny. And Score Bunny's
is it
like...
because he's 80 years old, that's why he sounds like that? Nothing makes donuts taste better than a foot coming in contact with them. If you like what you heard and love co-op with your friends, check out Gaming Together, a cooperative podcast. That's Gaming Together, a cooperative podcast.